All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 27th Common Council meeting. Please call the roll.
Erickson,
Here.
Ford,
Here.
Grower,
Here.
Hanson, Miller,
Here.
Wojciechowski,
Here.
Palmieri,
Here.
present 6.
All right, we'll now have the invocation led by Councilmember Erickson, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
We together this evening to discuss the issues that confront our city. May we honor those who have come before us, including the original stewards of this area, the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations. May our decisions tonight improve the well-being of our residents. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of
of America, and
to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
All right, this evening we have citizen statements to council next. And I'd like to check with the clerk to see if we have anyone registered for general citizen statements to the council. These are items that are not on the agenda that will be followed by public comment.
No, we do not.
Okay, first of all, we'll go straight away to a Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls proclamation. Do we have, I believe, Mr. Kitchen was going to attend to receive the proclamation. Mr. Kitchen.
I am here. I'm new to this format, so.
Oh, sure. All right. Well, very good. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, let's get started. Whereas, according to a 2016 report from the National Institute of Justice, 84% of American Indian and Alaska Native women have experienced violence in their lifetime, more than half of whom experience sexual violence. And whereas, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, homicide is the third leading cause of death among American Indian and Alaska Native women between 10 and 24 years of age, and the fifth leading cause of death for American Indian and Alaska Native women between 25 and 34 years of age. And whereas in 2016, the National Crime Information Center reported nearly 6,000 cases of missing American Indian and Alaska Native women and girls, but the U.S. Department of Justice was tracking only about 100 cases. And whereas still little data exists on the number of American women and girls in the United States, but there have been instances of violence towards Indigenous women and girls from the 11 Wisconsin Native American tribes. And whereas we commemorate the lives of missing and murdered American Native and Alaska Native women and girls whose cases are documented and undocumented in public records and the media, and demonstrate solidarity with the families of the victims in light of those tragedies. Now, therefore, I, Lori Palmieri, Mayor of Oshkosh, do hereby proclaim May 5th, 2021 as Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls in Oshkosh, and encourage all citizens to work to support and resolve to act to prevent further victimization. And a little announcement in regard to that, May 5th will also be a bridge lighting turning red just after sunset. I believe that's going to be located a small vigil there down by the bridge where the lights are going to turn red. Mr. Kitchen, would you like to share anything?
Yes, I was asked to present this a little earlier this afternoon, or to be here on behalf of Hannah Schmidt, who couldn't make it. And I work with her on a few different things. So I just want to thank all of you for this. I'm here on behalf of those that are still missing, those that are no longer with us anymore, and their families. I'm here on behalf of many of my Indigenous women friends and acquaintances. Some that are from every tribe in this state. I was asked to be on the Attorney General's Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Task Force on a couple of their committees. I'm not on the task force, but I've been asked to be on a couple of their committees to help resolve some of the problems there. So I just want to thank all of you for this. And those that are, they'll be meeting at the convention center, and I believe that's right near the hotel, right across the street from the hotel down there in Oshkosh. So I thank all of you for this.
Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you very much. I have another meeting, so I'm gonna
Yes,
move on now
you
to
don't need
that
to
one.
stick around, but thank you for
Okay.
joining us.
Thank you, and you all have a wonderful evening.
And thank Hannah for arranging and working on coordinating this.
Okay, thank you very much, folks.
All right, bye-bye. All right, next we have a couple of presentations. The first is Greater Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods Incorporated. And I believe that would be, is it Pam Reuter?
Yes, I am here. Thank you, Mayor Palmieri. I have, as you requested, submitted a video, so I'm going to turn it over to IT. I ask you for your patience as you watch the 8.5-minute video. You also were supplied our annual report on pages 7 through 11 of your packet. So the two go hand in hand, and hopefully technology will treat us well for the video, and then I'll open it up for questions. But on behalf of Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods, I thank you for your time tonight. And I'm not sure who in IT. There it is. Hello, this is Pam Reuter with Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods. I appreciate the opportunity to share with the Oshkosh community and the Common Council the many successes of our organization from 2020, despite a pandemic. I am proud of our staff, board of directors, and our neighborhoods for the ability to engage residents, develop new programs, and ultimately move our neighborhoods forward by strengthening neighborhoods. As we moved to a virtual platform with our board meetings, our board members not only showed up on the screen, but they led our individual fundraising efforts with 100% board participation. Our budget stayed intact for 2020 as we had secured funding early in 2020 so that we were able to implement new programs and continue our efforts in neighborhood revitalization and community building and engagement. What is outstanding is the total community investment for 2020 in our neighborhoods, $296,681.
As the pandemic struck, we transitioned to a virtual platform for the Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods Alliance. With that, we average a higher attendance, better involvement, and have been able to bring in more than just local speakers to the group. Our neighborhoods also got creative during these times of struggle as we still supported 23 neighborhood events and recorded 2,491 volunteer hours in 2020. To keep staff and volunteers safe, staff was encouraged to work remotely. As a result, we embraced technology to allow us to collaborate despite being physically distanced. Specifically, we've utilized Google's remote platform and have developed better digital organizational skills. Several neighborhood associations met individually to discuss great neighborhood grant applications, goals for the future, and how to stay socially connected in a physical distancing world.
In 2020, we created the publication called Hey Neighbor, and it comes out monthly, and it's a series that highlights ways to stay connected during the pandemic or other relevant things that we think our associations would benefit from learning. It's been really well received, and you do not have to be in an association to sign up, so you can just go to www.gohni.org and sign up to receive one every month.
Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods completed a rehab project in the Stevens Park Neighborhood Association. Our goal with this real estate development is to improve neglected property, but also to start a ripple effect throughout the neighborhood. With this project, we were able to convert a vacant lot into a very desirable property with a brand new 2-car garage attached. The neighborhood sent volunteers to help with the landscaping and some of the demolition work, and we were excited that we had an accepted offer after only 1 week on the market. Our investment in the Frankfurt property increased the value by $60,900, and we definitely witnessed the ripple effect as several neighborhoods embarked on home improvement projects, strengthening the Stevens Park Neighborhood Association.
The Oshkosh Senior Center entered into a partnership with the Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods. And since August, we've implemented a program that introduces seniors to technology. The goal of the program is to overcome isolation, and we've certainly been very successful in making that happen. We've seen 350 visits so far. It's about the technology, but truthfully, it's a lot of fun and social interaction. And in the year of COVID, this is so important to our seniors.
In 2020, Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods was able to offer 20 Good Neighbor grants through a generous donation from the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation and in partnership with the City of Oshkosh. Homeowners submitted applications for curb appeal projects and included the before picture. The projects were completed and after pictures sent in, and the homeowners were then reimbursed up to $750 through the grant. There were a wide variety of projects completed in conjunction with the grant, from painting or siding to landscaping. One had a new driveway poured, and another had a new, safer set of stairs installed. The total amount of improvements made in the neighborhoods was over $100,000. We are excited that the grant is funded for 2 more years.
Rock Block Oshkosh neighborhood revitalization looked very different in 2020, but we were happy to report it was very successful as we completed 97 projects in the Congressfield Neighborhood Association, with over 400 volunteers reported as well. To ensure the safety of our staff and volunteers, we brought in small groups and added dates to complete the projects. The uniqueness of Rock the Block Oshkosh is the collaboration of Habitat for Humanity of Oshkosh, Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods, and the City of Oshkosh. By working together, we were able to visit and still complete 30 different properties in the Congressfield Neighborhood Association, while ensuring the safety of our staff and volunteers.
Working on the block party trailer during the pandemic was a bright spot. We were able to secure all the items that you need for a block party in one-stop shopping in one trailer. We have tables, we have chairs, we have games, we have a state-of-the-art sound system, and we really worked with the community to get the items in the trailer, and we can't wait for our associations to be able to use it when it's safe. When the pandemic hit in March, we decided that we'd focus on building our social media presence and educating the community about what we do. We've been very pleased to see increases in every social media tool that we have in Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And as we'd hoped, we have improved our presence significantly. We are really pleased with our reach, engagement, and overall strategy in the community. We developed a communications plan that will help guide our social media growth in 2021, and we are excited about that too.
While in the pandemic, Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods brought together a new neighborhood, historic 4th Ward. We are extremely excited to add this neighborhood to our family and grow our neighborhood to 19 associations in the City of Oshkosh. We will continue to create safe, inclusive, and healthy neighborhoods through this pandemic while maintaining safety protocols for our staff and volunteers.
So in conclusion, I want to thank our staff and board of directors for their enthusiasm and hard work that allowed us to positively impact our community in 2020. Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods continues to build relationships and is committed to developing and sustaining neighborhood associations in Oshkosh. We are optimistic that we will be able to gather again in 2021. Hopefully utilize our fun block party trailer. We are really excited about the impact of our Good Neighbor grants and hope to gain investors to grow this program beyond the 40 approved grants over the next 2 years. Rock the Block Oshkosh in June will be exciting for the River East Neighborhood Association, and we look forward to collaborating with our partners to bring this fantastic opportunity to more neighborhoods. Thank you for your support of Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods and all that you do to help make Oshkosh a great place to live, work, learn, and play. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. That was very informational and a unique format this year for the presentation. It was good to see some smiling faces through 2020, all that was. And I'm sure that your phone is ringing off the hook for reservations on the block party trailer. Are there any openings left?
Technically, our block party trailer task force meets tomorrow to thoroughly go through the reservation process. Right now, they've established May 15th as the day we'll start accepting those reservations. So yes, things are happening quickly as more people are being vaccinated and things can open up. So we are very optimistic that it's going to be a full calendar this summer. Yes.
And what about those Rock the Block volunteer openings? How many openings are left? Because I know that's become quite the popular spring outing is volunteering for Rock the Block over the last 3 years. Are there any spots left for that?
Yes, we attended the volunteer fair on Saturday at the Oshkosh Farmers Market and got the word out that way. We have several businesses that are supporting by sending volunteers to work during our June event in the River East neighborhood, changing it a little bit different, still staying safe and having smaller groups check in at a time. We have work dates established for June 8th, June 10th, and then the following week as well on the 15th and the 17th. So there still are some spots available for Rock the Block Oshkosh volunteers, and we'd be happy to have you. You can sign up actually with Oshkosh volunteeroshkosh.org.
Well, I know it's a fun time. I remember doing that with Sacred Heart, and it was a great day, although I think there was a little snow that weekend. So it's good to see that the dates have been delayed. Hopefully, there'll be fairer weather. Other council members, do you have questions on the presentation? Comments, questions? Well, thank you so much, Go HNI, and we will move on to the Oshkosh Economic Development Corporation presentation. And thank you again, Go HNI. I see we have Mr. Rathjen here.
Actually, Lori, Trisha Rathermel, I'm here.
Oh, hi, Trisha. I did not see you. All right. Well, you don't look like Art, so take it away.
Art is with us as well, so he can chime in if he has any questions, actually representing both Go HNI.
That's a very good thing. She doesn't look like me, so let's just let Trisha run this.
Oh, thank you, Art. Well, we also prepared a video for tonight. The slides that you have to go along with it. Some of them, we actually have some additional information in the slides, in addition to what we have on the video, but we'll watch the video and then again, open it up for questions.
Good evening. This is Jason White, the CEO of Greater Oshkosh Economic Development Corporation, at least for another week. I wanted to start off this presentation by thanking the Oshkosh Common Council, both past and present, and also the Oshkosh City staff for working so collaboratively with me and our team over the past 6 years that I've been here in Oshkosh. We've had a lot that we've accomplished together, both from helping existing businesses grow and be retained in our community, revitalize our downtown, infrastructure projects, and some important workforce development initiatives as well. Both the past and present council members, I'm proud to say that I've been very happy with the relationship that we've had. Obviously, we have always had the easiest of projects to work through, and we've always been able to find common ground to do what's best for the Oshkosh community. So as I leave, I just again want to say thank you for your partnership, and I wish everybody well. And at this point, I want to turn the presentation over to Tricia Rathermel, who's assuming interim CEO responsibilities, as well as is our Director of Economic Development.
Thank you, Jason. Our team would like to thank Jason for his years of leadership and dedication. And we are now dedicated as a team to carrying on the mission of this organization that he helped create. As we welcome new council members, I wanted to review some of the main initiatives of Greater Oshkosh Economic Development Corporation. Those include business retention and expansion, workforce development, talent retention and attraction, entrepreneurial growth, business attraction with targeted industry development, and disaster recovery and resiliency. Our role is to work in coordination with various partnerships to assist and manage programs that meet these initiatives. While number 5 on this list was met with the most urgency and received the most exposure in the past year in light of the pandemic, we are proud to report that we maintained activities in every one of these initiatives. In addition to our support from the City of Oshkosh, Greater Oshkosh Economic Development Corporation is partnered with many surrounding municipalities and Winnebago County to provide a regional approach to economic stability. In 2020, the organization hit a milestone, our 5-year anniversary, and we took the opportunity to look back at the impact on our region. Through projects directly impacted by our efforts and our organization, we created 766 new jobs, retained over 2,000 jobs, and saw over $205 million in capital investments to our region. We can see the results of these efforts recognized as Oshkosh continues to receive accolades, only a few of which are listed here. In the past year, our community was recognized from many different areas, from individual employees to working parents, and even as a top place to retire. Additional ways that we track the health of our economic development are the large-scale projects of the region. These are just a few of the great projects that moved forward or were completed in the past year, again, despite the conditions of the pandemic. We continue to support businesses in the region by providing access capital. The revolving loan fund assists businesses in business expansion for existing companies, while Capital Catalyst supports new or early growth businesses in conjunction with funding from WEDC. These programs have been instrumental in creating jobs and securing business placement in Oshkosh. The numbers shown here are over the life of the programs. And while we did not have a lot of new funding issued in 2020, the staff did spend a lot of time with these businesses to help them navigate the challenges of the pandemic. In addition to our regular capital programs, 2 additional funds were created as a response to COVID-19. Partnering with the City of Oshkosh Revolving Loan Fund, and we had access to $1.7 million and were able to offer loans up to $10,000 to any business in Winnebago County experiencing financial hardship as a result. Over 50 loans were issued, assisting a wide variety of industries from small manufacturers to restaurants to chiropractic care, showing that these challenges were faced universally. Our loan programs were the first assistance in the New North region, and we want to thank both the City of Oshkosh and the Winnebago County IDB for their quick actions that allowed us to offer support almost as promptly as the challenges surfaced. Of course, our actions to react, respond, and create resiliency to the pandemic did not stop there. Our team was also active in federal and state level programs to not only provide relief funds, but also encourage proper safety and prevention practices. The goal was to slow the spread and speed the recovery. We initiated a group called the Greater Oshkosh Partners, which met virtually on a weekly basis to collaborate on community solutions. One success story from this group was the Greater Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative actually matching up with Winnebago County Health Department to facilitate the scheduling and transportation of elderly to vaccine appointments. Finally, we launched a Facebook group with over 200 business members to have a pipeline to directly share information in a clear and concise way. These collaborations have continued into 2021, and we see the long-term benefits of continuing them past the pandemic. Although we were prevented from meeting in person last year for most of the year, it did give us the opportunity to connect with a much wider and diverse group of businesses virtually. Through the programs I just mentioned, we made connections with more small and mid-sized businesses. We were able to gain a greater understanding of the supply chain in our region and how some of our rural and mid-sized manufacturers support our larger employers. In the end, our overall business touchpoints increased by 25%. Another key statistic that we track is employment data for our region. As we all know, there was an unexpected dip in employment in March and April, but our numbers have continually to steadily increase and are approaching pre-pandemic figures for many industries. This is why our workforce development remains a key initiative for our organization. The Winnebago Catch a Ride, our most active workforce development program, also experienced growth last year. In only the second year of the program, we had an over 250% increase in rider participation. Transportation is one of the top 3 employment barriers. And with layoffs, shift changes for social distancing, and job transitions, there was an additional strain on this area. We continue to see growth and are now focusing on how to create sustainability for this program. When it comes to business attraction, site selection and requests for information are a key way that we can connect local and outside businesses to properties in our region. These requests came to a sharp halt in 2020 as businesses addressed the uncertainty of the economy after the pandemic began. However, as confidence was regained in the third quarter, we were able to have 26 projects with information submitted. Now in 2021, we have already worked on 16 projects and are averaging 1 request for information per week. In addition to working with local real estate agents and developers, we are also looking to add more Gold Shovel certified sites to the New North organization so we can be more agile and competitive in this arena and focus on the overall development. This year, we are also testing Gazelle AI, an artificial intelligence software to help us identify the right projects for our economy. As we carry forth our efforts in response to COVID, we are also extremely excited as we see more and more action focused on other initiatives. There's much to look forward to in 2021, but here are a few things specifically for us in particular. As Greater Oshkosh Economic Development Corporation enters a time of transition, I'm excited for the opportunity as our economy transitions out of recovery and into stability. We thank you, City Council members, for your support and guidance that enables us to be the leading economic development agency and help making Greater Oshkosh a premier location to live, work, and do business.
Well, thank you, Tricia, and thank you, Jason. Do council members have questions or comments?
Lori, I had a question.
Yes, Councilmember Eric Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tricia, for the presentation. I was just curious, as the resident young person on council, what if anything is being done to attract and retain young people to kind of diversify the workforce in the Greater Oshkosh area?
I think there's a lot of things that we're doing. Our Capital Catalyst program really is targeted at a lot of people who are coming out of UW Oshkosh, those young entrepreneurs. That's a key place that we work with is the business development there at UW Oshkosh to try to make sure if somebody has a business idea that they stay here in Oshkosh to do it. In addition to that, I know we work with the city a lot, and there's been a lot of talk of what type of different offerings we have as far as housing and the other attractions that make our region attractive to that workforce. Because yes, that is an important part of making sure that we have, we don't want our workforce to age out. So it is something that we are always working on. We don't have a specific initiative right now other than partnering with other initiatives that are going on.
Great, thank you.
Other council members, Councilmember Mugarauer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I want to start off. Jason, is Jason still on the call or no? Or was he not on to begin with? I didn't think
Jason recorded, so
that's what I thought. Yeah, but I know he'll listen later, and I'll be sending a word over to him. But you guys at GoE2C, 2020 was obviously, the word is unique, right? 2020 was unique for everybody. You guys knocked it out of the park. You did everything you could and more to try to respond to the events unfolding here in Oshkosh. Personally, I'm sad to see Jason go, but it's time for GoE2C 2.0, the next wave, the next iteration. Jason's going to do great things where he's going. Laid an excellent foundation for you guys to continue building upon what you guys have done. Couldn't be prouder of the work you guys do. The Capital Catalyst, the revolving loan fund, all those things that you guys run through our long range finance, and it just really just another excellent year for you guys, and appreciate all the efforts that you guys have put in. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate that.
All right, then. Well, thank you again for that presentation, and we're looking forward to a stronger 2021 report, but that wasn't anything to sneeze at.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you all.
All right, next we have a public comment on agenda items, and I will first make note of the registered emails that came in through the city manager's office. And we have, let's see here, it looks like 6 correspondence. This does not include those emails that came in to all council through the portal. These are the ones that go through the city manager's office for official recording, and that includes, let's see, Troy Monday, Arthur Hess, Dale and Karen Stagey, Barb Ernst, and Christine W. Whitty. They have registered that they are opposed to the mask ordinance that is later on our agenda. And R. Strubas registered that she is in support of the extension of the mask ordinance. And then we also have Scott and Lisa Hutchison, who registered their concerns over the North Side Bar and Grill expansion, also later on the agenda. Did I miss any, Pam?
No, you did not.
And then do we have others who are registered to speak on agenda items?
Yes, we do. Bill Wyman was registered to speak to Go HNI.
Oh, Mr. Wyman, are you still with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
I've been involved in both the Healthy Neighborhoods and Greater Oshkosh since the beginning, and without the city and the city council's strength and foresight, they wouldn't be what they are today. Both of these organizations started very small grassroots, and they've really grown. And I just want to thank the city for supporting it and continue to support it, I hope, because they're really helping the community. So I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you. And do we have others registered, Pam?
Yes, we do. We have for item number 25, ordinance 21-221, Danny Johnson.
Yes, Mr. Johnson, are you here? Danny Johnson? Danny Johnson. All right, it appears that Mr. Johnson's having some technical difficulties.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Yes, welcome.
Sorry, I punched in a little bit differently.
All right.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very appreciative of the council hearing me. Yes, I've been proactive in trying to make sure people do mask up. I'm for masking up. I'm for saving lives. I don't understand why people don't understand that the masks are just giving us time to get people vaccinated. They're also saying in another respect that, hey, 6 feet is fine enough. That's another respect. What I'm trying to say is there's a lot of lives out there that have passed. There's 573,000 lives who have passed. That's a lot of lives if you multiply it out by a third, let's say, by 3, because there's 3 people in a family. So that virus has actually contacted or affected 1,720,000 people. And that's only on the first contact thing. Then there are probably 6 to 10 different organizations that for every person that's lost, they will contact. From friends to clergy to neighbors to employers to organizations to grocery stores to the fire to the police. This isn't a game that's out there. You know, unfortunately, I let's put it like this. Fortunately, I think people need to listen. It's not a hard thing to wear the mask. It's helping people go ahead and protect their children. You know, we are a society of children. We are a society of families. We are a society that cares about each other. You know, I can't say more than that. If it wasn't for the close association we as human beings have with each other to keep our friends and our families healthy, I don't know where we'd be. You know, there is a number still to be vaccinated. We are only at, let's see, as a county, we're at 31% of the county have received vaccinations. All I'm saying is I'm for extension. I'm for extension because we need to go ahead and have the opportunity of extending, how can I say it? Wearing a mask will at least keep me healthy. I've seen pollen and gel connected on my mask. I know what it's doing. I know it's telling also people, hey, you know, be aware the virus is out there. I'm thinking that we need to sort of buy time for people. You know, we that are healthy it shouldn't be a big thing. I mean, I put on my mask as I go out the door each day. I don't think it's a big thing. Just put it on. What do you? Hey, I used to be I still am a pretty good singer. You know, breathing in tight air, you how can I say it? You get used to wearing the mask is all I can really say. It hasn't harmed my singing at all. And I'm fully vaccinated now. I've had the Pfizer vaccination, and I'm still continuing to wear my mask because I want to see that other people know that the virus is out there. And until we have more numbers, we used to be number 2 in the nation as far as states are concerned, as far as vaccination is concerned. We are number 10. I'd like to see us get back up there to number 2 before we, you know, drop this thing. I say let's go for another couple more months. What's the harm in that? You know, I believe it's our responsibility to protect our children. If wearing a mask will cut down the coughing in somebody else's face, let it be so. I don't understand. That's all I can really say.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Johnson, and
thank you very much.
Appreciate your comments.
Thank you, and I appreciate the Common Council for having me on tonight. Thank you, Common Council. I appreciate
welcome.
it.
All
Have
right,
a great night.
and you too. And who do we have next, Pam?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, for item number 30, resolution 21-226, we have several individuals registered to speak. Our first speaker is Scott Hutchinson.
All right, Scott Hutchison, are you on our WebEx portal here? Scott Hutchison. Scott Hutchison. 21-226. All right, let's come back to Scott. Who's next?
Lisa Hutchinson.
Lisa, are you with us? Lisa Hutchison. Lisa Hutchison. Also item 21 to 26. Last call for Lisa Hutchison. All right, I think we need to move on down the list.
Okay, our next and final speaker is Sherry Dewhurst.
Sherry Dewhurst.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
So my name is Sherry Dewhurst. I'm the owner of Northside Bar and Grill. I sent a letter, an email to each of the common council members, including yourself, Mayor. All I'm asking is for a chance. You know, I'm not asking to say, hey, give it to her. She, you know, if I screw up, take it away from me. That's all I'm asking for. I've tried doing the trash. That was one of the concerns. We've done that for the last 2 years since I purchased the bar. We go out every event. I mean, it's pretty much every day that we go out and pick up trash in the neighborhood and in our parking lot, and the grassy area next to us. We've went and rented a tent each time that we've had a band and gotten a permit. The tent is in hopes to kind of help with the sound barrier. We're also in the process of meeting with, I believe his name is Steven from the planning department. He's coming in on Thursday at 8 a.m. to help me with trying to figure out how much fence I need. We have another person that's coming in to bid the fence. We've kind of priced it through Menards. We also are looking at doing the entire property, not just the east side, which the planning commission had suggested. We're trying. I mean, we've even suggested, okay, even if it's not until 11 o'clock till 10, you know, like, we don't know what else to do. We're willing to do, if you tell me to do this, this, and this, I'm going to do it. We've tried coming up with ideas prior to doing events. I don't know what else to do.
All right, thank you, Sherry Dewhurst. And let's see, I believe that is on a later agenda item 21 to 26. Do council members have any questions at this time or comments? All right, Pam, is that all we have listed then?
That is all that I have registered to vote, or not to vote, to speak.
All right, then. Thank you to those who joined us and spoke this evening. We will move on to consent agenda items. I'll take a motion and a second for consent.
So moved.
Second.
Erickson and Mugerauer. All right, discussion on consent agenda. Is there it looks like there are a couple of people here for, I believe it's item 21 to 12 for the Cultural Fine Arts and Jazz Society. If anybody has any questions of them, if we have nothing on consent, we can call the roll.
Erickson.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Grower.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Wojciechowski.
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right, next we'll jump in the pending ordinances. First off, we have 21-217, prohibit parking on west side of Cumberland Trail from 9th Avenue to Greenfield Trail from November 1st to April 30th. Can we have a motion and a second?
I move approval.
Second.
And Mugerauer, and discussion on 21-217. Let's see, is Mr. Collins here?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Collins, would you like to just give kind of a brief summary of what the reason for this is, this request?
Sure, I can do that. Basically, this is just a request from the streets department. In the winter, they were having a lot of trouble plowing due to the number of vehicles that were parked on the street. And Cumberland Trail does have quite a few bends in it, and it's also a bus route. So between the plows and the buses, we're both having very difficult time during the winter. So this was the compromise we came up with to restrict parking just during the winter months to help with the street maintenance, and then also to allow the buses to get up and down the street.
All right, thank you for that. And as I understand it, this is going into, if it passes tonight, it goes into effect for only 3 days and then does not resume until November 1st, correct?
Correct. It basically won't go into effect until November 1st, because by the time we get it signed, it's going to be, we have to request locates before we can put signs in, et cetera, and that takes a few days. So basically it's November 1st.
Councilmember Mugrauer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, Mr. Collins, I just have a brief question. We've got a couple areas in town that have these restrictions due to narrow terraces and snowplow and busing things. Can you confirm though that the dates are all uniform in terms of when you can park and when you can't, or are some of them a little different?
I can't say that for certain, but I know that we generally try to make it from around November 1st until the end of March or April, but without looking at them specifically, I couldn't tell you that they're all uniform. I know since I've been here, we try to do that, but I'm sure prior to that, I'm not positive without looking at them.
Okay. Might be just something in the future in terms of just continuity or expectations throughout the entire community, but still supportive of it. Just wanted to double check with you. Thank you.
Sure. You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments on this item?
Ms. Mayor, I'd like to speak for a
Yes.
second.
Yes,
I agree.
Councilmember Hanson.
If we do put it into effect, and the other ones, all of the city seasonal parking restrictions should be uniform. It just helps so people know if they know on one spot of the city, they know on the other side. And it helps obviously with the plows and everyone else all to be on the same page. So I agree with Matt. We can all look into that just to make sure, but I think it's a good idea. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, seeing no other hands raised, please take the 2019.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Mugrauer?
Aye.
Hanson?
Aye.
Miller? Miller?
Aye.
Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Mulberry?
Someone
Aye.
is in the chat room claiming that they have tried to
Carrie 7.
us to speak. Period. Do you want to accommodate ?
So it appears that we do have someone else who attempted a request to speak. Do we have that guest? Does council want to oblige?
Sure.
All right. Yes, go ahead and please state your name.
Hey, my name is Stephen Morano. I'm guessing you're talking about me since the chat, so thank you. Okay, so I'm a citizen of Oshkosh of over 11 years. Today, so I've got one concern, one question, and then 2 suggestions to share with the council. But before I do, I just want to say thank you to all of you who've led this last year for your service to the city and citizens of Oshkosh. I know some of the people who were leading are gone, and so you can pass this on to them. I don't agree with everything that you've decided. I don't envy having to make these multifaceted decisions which are affecting people's lives in very real ways. Most of you probably didn't know that you were signing up for leading the city through this, so thank you. I appreciate it. So my concern is this: I attended last week's city council meeting, as well as the one where everyone was sworn in, so the last two. So it was the first meeting that I had attended since the meeting remote. As a citizen, it felt really different. Not just because it's a video call, but because I couldn't find a link to the Cisco meeting, so I was just watching. Anyways, I figured that out. But so some of the city council members were also not on video. I see everybody is today. So thank you. I really appreciate that. It has a feeling of more transparency, I guess, versus, I work all day online and I know you're having at least I have side chats and things like that. And so when you're on video, I know you're present and paying attention and hopefully not having private side conversations about the issue without the public knowing about it. That kind of, I get it, it's really convenient, but I think it defeats part of the purpose of open meetings. So just consider that. So my question for consideration is, what are the quantitative metrics for returning the city council meetings, for having them be regularly in person with the public able to attend? That's my question for consideration. And then two suggestions. I hope you find them easy, which is until that time, I would suggest the city council members have their cameras on during the meetings, which is like that's happening today. And then on the city council webpage, please just consider adding some text to direct people maybe a little better for how to actually participate in this meeting. So that's what I had prepared to say. And I didn't know that the mask item was on the agenda, but I'll just add one comment if I have a minute left. And that is that, if you look at the numbers in the county, they're very much down. And I think the longer that we continue to have ordinances and resolutions in place, maybe when they're not absolutely necessary, the less that citizens are going to be respecting those ordinances. And so it's just please consider that I see it. I think we all see it, is the attitude of people generally is people are caring less and less each day about these things because they're just out there continually. And if we want people to care, when we have a state of emergency and when we make an ordinance like this, it should be when we really need it. So just please consider that. And I know, probably when we really need it, debate, but it's my opinion. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morano. And so as I heard that we've got a couple of follow-up things here that you had asked about quantitative metrics for council returning in person to include public participation in person, and that you'd like to see text on a front web page on how to link directly for participation, which I agree with you. We could do better there. And then it looks like the last item was just commenting that you are not necessarily supportive of extending the mask ordinance. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. So we will continue on with our pending ordinances. We are back to 21-218. Approve zone change from suburban mixed use district SMU to suburban mixed use district with a planned development overlay for properties located at the southwest corner of West South Park Avenue and West 20th Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval. Do we have a motion and a second for consideration here?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so that was Ford and Erickson, I believe. Discussion on 21-218. Discussion. No discussion. Please call the roll.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Hanson?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right, next we'll move on to new ordinances. No action on the first reading. So 21-219, create and amend ordinances for electric scooters and electric personal assistive mobility devices, amend general bicycle ordinance, amend bike lanes ordinance, and amend parks ordinance. So let's see here. There's no action, but is Dave Proska maybe here with us to give a brief summary of these new ordinances in the electric scooter world?
I am here, although you may want to ask Amy Vandenhogen. She'll give you a better answer than I will.
Okay, I didn't see Amy on the list, but Amy, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Now, yes.
Welcome. Sorry, I was on mute.
Yes.
All right. So just as a quick rundown, in 2019, the state passed a law legalizing the use of electric scooters on roadways, sidewalks, and bicycle lanes within the state. Under that statute, municipalities are allowed to regulate electric scooters in very specific ways. Generally speaking, we have to regulate them the same way as we regulate bicycles, with the exception that we can prohibit or restrict their operation on roads in excess of 25 miles per hour. We can restrict or prohibit electric scooters on sidewalks and in bicycle ways. And we can also prohibit or restrict the short-term commercial rental of electric scooters. So with that, staff went to both the Traffic and Parking Advisory Board, and we also went to Bike and Ped to get their input on what they would like to see. Both boards were consistent in that they wanted to restrict electric scooters on roads in excess of 25 miles per hour, and they also wanted to restrict the devices on sidewalks. There was a disagreement on whether we should restrict and prohibit short-term rental. Traffic and Parking wanted to completely prohibit short-term rental, whereas Bike and Ped were in support of short-term rental, provided it was done under a pilot program. That's an approach that other municipalities in the state have taken, including Milwaukee, Madison, and now Appleton as well. Ultimately, after City Manager Roloff took into account some of the concerns from other municipalities about electric scooters being abandoned in the public right-of-way, tossed in rivers, he resolved that dispute by directing staff to draft an ordinance that would allow short-term commercial rental, provided it was done through a docked system and done through a pilot program, and then prohibit dockless rental of the devices. So that's the proposed ordinance in front of you today. Finally, I will note that in addition to electric scooters, the proposed ordinance also addresses electric personal assisted mobility devices. You guys probably know those as Segways. The law on Segways is not new, but the statutes that govern Segways are very similar to electric scooters. We can basically monitor them in the same way. So staff thought it made sense to bring that forth at this time as well.
Amy, I just had a clarification question here. So personal assistive mobility devices are also known as Segways, but that is not, for example, an electric wheelchair that someone uses for their mobility, correct? Correct. Is that a PUMD?
I don't know the acronym for that, but I can assure you it is not what we are proposing in this ordinance. It's not an EPAMD. Those are just Segways, essentially.
All right. And other council members, questions on this item? Discussion. Councilmember Miller and then Hanson. You're muted, Mr. Miller.
Thanks. I'm sorry. I used like 3 or 4 different forms of
conferencing here. My apologies. I want to make sure that this does not include electric assisted bicycles. Can you tell me how this falls into the spectrum?
So there are actually, I think, so there's electric bicycles and there are motor bicycles. Neither of those is regulated in terms of, so there's basically two new ordinances specific or codes that we're proposing. One about the 25 mph, no sidewalks, all that. The other ordinance or the other code that deals with dockless mobility, that could apply to electric bicycles and motor bicycles, but that's just saying you can't have a dockless system with those devices if you want to rent them to the public.
Oh, so that's strictly rental.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I just, because there's so many, these things are evolving every single day, and I see most of these are hybrids now where you can pedal and you can hit a number and it assists you in certain ways. So I don't want to make sure that we're prohibiting anybody that needs the device for assistance because of medical reasons or anything else. So thank you.
My turn.
Councilmember Hanson, now I'm muted.
All right. So my question is as of pulled over riding a bicycle when drunk, what's going to stop these college kids from riding, or anyone riding these mopeds on the street drunk? And I know they go quite fast. Has there been any kind of safety concern brought up, or talks or research done on that? Because I mean, we do have quite a few bike accidents, even when people aren't intoxicated here in Oshkosh. I've seen quite a few of them the last few years. They can't drive them on the sidewalks. I can understand the 25 miles and a person on a scooter drunk. That's still some place for error, quite a bit actually. So is there any research done on that, or kind of limitations or any concern?
That is, I will say, still a developing area right now. These devices are really new. I don't think the law is quite established on how that is addressed. I do think that is something we could internally handle through a pilot program when it comes to the commercial rental aspect of it. Obviously, the pilot program is not in front of you today. That would be something developed after this ordinance goes through.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? I do have one, and that is, since this would only be allowed in the street, as I understand it, and the scooters can be somewhat low to the ground, younger, smaller individuals using those, is there any thought or practice of requiring those taller flags so that the rider is visible? And I'm losing folks on the screen, so I don't know if are we still connected? Okay. Amy, is there any kind of thought to requiring some kind of elevated flag or visibility so that these individuals can be seen?
So I have a two-part answer to that. The first is if we just look at a private owner of a device. Again, we need to regulate the private owner of a device in the same way we regulate bicycles. So that is something we could look into if that is something you want to also obligate bicyclists to be doing. Alternatively, I would think that if this takes off, the majority of our participants could be part of that pilot program. Because we have more control in a pilot program setting, that is something we could implement there if you wanted. I don't know if that answers your question, Lori.
Yes, visibility. And I guess the other question is, in other cities where I've heard some cities have canceled these programs and some have expanded them, but are they requiring helmets?
In terms of other cities, Mark Lyons has done more research in what other cities have done than I have. I do think a lot of those pilot programs do require helmet wearing. I can't answer that question specifically as to other cities.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Yes, Councilmember Hanson.
One more. Assuming these will be available program, anything, either way, are there lights on these rental scooters? Are there reflectives? I know bicycles, you can buy your own lights, but again, standing out and making sure people are seen, especially if they are intoxicated, because number one, all of those drunk kids are going to go straight for it. They're going to take them from campus to the bars and wherever they want to go in between. What are the safety measures included on those?
I'm glad Mark popped up so he can be taking notes. I will say, I do know that some cities have restricted hours of operation. So that's one way to handle the kind of nighttime driving concerns. But I think your comments are all well taken in terms of how do we create a safe program, especially around the campus area. It looks like Mark is taking notes as I speak. So unfortunately, I don't have specifics to your questions today. I think some of those will be addressed in the future should we get an applicant, work with the applicant through some of these safety issues, and then come back to council with the proposal that has more of the specifics of how we're going to address those issues.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if I may, the idea behind the pilot program is we would take a look at that, and those are the issues that we would look at if we were going to consider permitting a pilot program. Mr. Lyons took note of Councilmember Hanson's concerns regarding lighting, the mayor's concerns about, we talked about the flags. So we can put those things down and discuss that with somebody, because if somebody is going to be doing a pilot program, they got to be showing us their best. So those are the types of things that we'll be looking at. But thank you for those comments. I know Mark Lyons was taking real good notes, and we'll check them in the morning.
All right, very good. All right, our next new ordinance is 21-220, approve zone change from neighborhood mixed-use district, NMU, to neighborhood mixed-use district with a planned development overlay for property located at 1903 Harrison Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. I know, again, there's no action on this, but I just want to, ask staff if they could explain this expansion or this change, the zone change, and the need for it. It looks like, again, Plan Commission did recommend approval.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. So this is Carmelli's Bar up at Harrison Street. They had approached staff last year about the potential of creating an outdoor seating area off the western portion of their building for dining. Per the code for outdoor entertainment, there is a 50-foot required setback from residential property. The bar owners came into Plan Commission, had a workshop with them, talked to their neighbors about the potential ability to do this. Had a positive outcome from that workshop. They went back, had further discussions with their neighbors. The bar is not able to meet the 50-foot setback from residential for an outdoor seating area. So the only way they can achieve that outdoor seating area is to go through a plan development overlay and seek relief from that 50-foot requirement. This is the first step in that process, is applying the plan development overlay onto the property and then seeking approval of the GDP SIP following.
I guess I would also ask Mr. Ford, so there seems to be some similarities between this item and another item on the agenda where Plan Commission is not recommending approval for various reasons. What was the discussion with Plan Commission about the noise factor and being only 50 feet from somebody's bedroom windows?
Yeah, the discussion on both of these items, I think the two big differences is this one that right here that was approved unanimously did not have any live music included in its outdoor activities, and also did not have any objections from neighbors, which is different in the case we'll discuss later.
Thanks for that. Other council members, questions or discussions on that new ordinance? All right. And then we do have a second reading on a new ordinance 21-221, create ordinance to require face coverings in response to COVID-19 coronavirus emergency. Proposed extension of existing ordinance to May 31, 2021. Staff recommends to waive the rules and adopt on first reading. Can I have a motion and a second on waiving the rules?
I'll move waiving the rules.
Second.
All right, so Ford and Wojciechowski, and any discussion on waiving the rules?
Madam Mayor.
Who's speaking, please?
This is resident Danny Johnson.
I'm sorry,
got a
Mr.
question.
Johnson. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson. We're not
Yes.
taking public comment at this point. All public comment was earlier in the at the beginning of the meeting, and I know that you did share with us your views on the masking. So unless council wants to make an exception, we are beyond that point.
Could I ask the mayor a question?
Yes, sir.
Is it possible that a doctor or nurse more experienced in the coronavirus situation could testify?
Well, we will go into our deliberation and have discussion, and there are folks that will be speaking to this, but thank you, Mr. Johnson. And I'll direct this back, I'll direct this back to council for voting on waiving the rules on first reading.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Mueller,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
O'Meara,
Aye.
carried 7.
All right, now we'll go back to the ordinance, creating the ordinance. This is actually an extension. For those of you who are watching, it's not creating a new ordinance, it's an extension that's been proposed of the ordinance that was created previously. And I'll have a motion and a second then on the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Erickson and Wojciechowski, discussion. Councilmember Ford.
Yes, I'd like to introduce a motion to amend the proposed ordinance to state that our local mask mandate will be automatically lifted when the county health department indicates that 50% of Winnebago County residents have received their final vaccine dose.
Way to go.
No comment from guests, please.
Sorry, I didn't know I was open.
Yes. Technology, are we able to do some muting there? All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Ford to amend the ordinance to expire upon 50% attainment of vaccination. Is that within the city limits or the county, Mr. Ford?
It would be with the county as reported by the county health department.
Do we have a second for the motion?
I'll second for now.
All right, seconded by Wojciechowski. Discussion on the amendment. Councilmember Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilman Ford, just wanted to get some context on, I'm supportive of the idea. Just curious where you got the 50%, and is that just first dosage, or would that be a complete first and second dosage, or first if it was just a Johnson & Johnson?
Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, you gotta give me a chance to explain myself here. Happy to explain. So why here? I'll start broad. My intent is to give the public a defined goal for ending the mask mandate while presenting a very clear action we can all take to get things closer to normal. From the start of this, I personally have tried, but I think we all have tried to find that balance between what's ideal and what is possible. And my hope is that this amendment can get us from a defensive stage of masks to more of an offensive stage of ending this thing with vaccination. So to your questions about why 50%, I know that I spoke with the city manager prior to this, and he can share the information from the county. But the idea is to be using the county health numbers that they have on their website that they report every day regarding the percentage of individuals who have completed their final dose. So that would be once that second shot, whether it's Moderna or Pfizer, or if it's the first shot of Johnson & Johnson. So I guess some background on 50%. There's no perfect number. I did have a brief discussion over email with the county health director, and I respect his recognition of this fact, that there is no perfect number. But I also think we have to respect the public's desire for an end game, especially when the county itself and our neighboring cities don't have a mask mandate. We're also operating under constraints where, as of right now, most kids can't get this vaccine. So universal eligibility is a really big indicator for me, but we're not there yet, and this makes the herd immunity challenge even greater. But 50% is attainable. As you can see up there on the board, right now we're at about 31%, but you look at about 40% that have gotten at least one dose, so presumably in the next 2 weeks, those will get up. The total number should be at least 40%. It's tangible. I think it shifts our debate from the negative to the positive. And I think we really must do this before the public loses patience with the mask mandate. And I really think this amendment can align our goals. The same actions that the public is taking to end the mask mandate align with the actions we need to be taking collectively to end the pandemic. So I hope this is a positive way for us to move forward to a logical, positive endgame for this mandate.
And I believe that, thank you, Mr. Ford. I believe that there's also Director Doug Guerin here with us. I guess, is Mr. Guerin available to also speak to this item, this amendment, proposed amendment?
Madam Mayor, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Yes. So I guess the first question would be, as Councilmember Ford proposed, a 50% fully vaccinated rate using Winnebago County numbers as an expiration to the mask ordinance. How do you feel about that?
I really appreciated Councilor Ford's explanation of really trying to align our goals. Clearly, we are at a point in the pandemic right now where vaccination is our primary goal, and so I really appreciate that thought. Typically I would encourage a metric that's a little bit more tied to actual burden of activity. And given the presence of variants right now, that perhaps changing the dynamics of this outbreak a bit. But it does appear at this time that we're doing quite well with the variants, especially compared to our neighboring states. Vaccine has started to slow down, and we really do need some motivation to increase vaccination. And at this point in time, it's going to take us a bit of time to get to 50%. I would anticipate that that would probably take longer than the next two council meetings. And so there's certainly, opportunity to redress this if necessary. And so we would certainly make sure that we have our metrics on the website. In fact, we'll even update our metrics such that you can also see, a breakdown by age group, where those numbers are at, so that the community can see certainly where we need to gain the most ground in terms of vaccine. So, at this point, I understand that, it's not there are no perfect measures here, but certainly would be supportive of having a mutual goal of vaccination to really try to move us forward and really get out of this situation as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Other council members, questions for Mr. Guerin? Councilmember Hanson, Wojciechowski, and Miller. In that order.
Okay, thank you. So, first question is, aren't these vaccinations going to have to happen like the flu yearly? So my question is every year we're gonna have to get more, like another one updated? And if so, by the time we're well past, 50%, say not gonna be 100%, but isn't it gonna be time for the next round if they are yearly vaccinations? How are we gonna deal with that? But on top of that, say we get to 50% for Winnebago County. If we're making this mandate for the city of Oshkosh, but we have to rope in Winnebago, I like what Councilman Ford had said about making it the 50% vaccination, but I feel like we're limiting the citizens of Oshkosh and making the whole of Winnebago County responsible for what we do with our city. I don't know if I don't really know where to go with that. I just kind of want to throw that out there as a thinking point on. Go ahead, Dan. Doug, sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, Councilor Hanson. So to address the first point, we don't know yet. It's possible that if we identify variants that are not responsive to the vaccine, that there could be a booster in the future. However, it remains yet to be seen whether or not an annual vaccination is actually going to be needed or not. So, the short answer is we just don't know yet. And then, I'm sorry, the second point was?
The 50% of all of Winnebago.
Oh, yes, thanks.
And that's more for Mr., but go ahead.
Yeah, well, so we had a discussion about that. And Oshkosh is a draw for the entire county. And so when we were talking about potentially tying a metric for the city of Oshkosh, it was really important to look beyond the borders of the city because so much of the county utilizes the city of Oshkosh as a resource.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for clarifying that. I do appreciate it.
Councilmember Wojciechowski, and then I believe Councilmember Miller.
Thank you. I have a few questions, Doug. First one, do you think that the 50% is too low? I'm just concerned that once we hit that mark, obviously we would do away with the mask mandate, and that's the end goal. But my concern is once we get to that 50% mark, people become apathetic and just say, well, we're at where we need to be, so I'm not going to get vaccinated anymore. Do you see that being a concern?
I really don't. Our goal is to reach herd immunity, and we're gonna reach it either through vaccination or through infection. And we can estimate right now that roughly a third, 34% or so of the population has been infected already. Granted, portion of the people that are becoming vaccinated are from that population, previous infection and then getting vaccine. But there's certainly a fraction of that population that won't. And, adding 50% to some percentage of those that haven't been infected is still going to really get us pretty close to, where we're headed, and hopefully people will continue beyond that. I think creating an incentive or a goal here for our community to reach a certain point. The city of Oshkosh is the only community that has a mask mandate in effect right now. So, I think that, the potential benefit and encouragement of vaccine, outweighs, the difficulty in picking the right number at this point. With vaccine slowing down, it's going to take us a little while to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that by the time we get there, our burden rates will be low enough that, we wouldn't want to head in that direction anyway.
Thank you. And I guess I would just say, not to Doug, but just out there, that I don't know if you envision getting to that mark before we would have to, if we were to pass this, we would have to retake it again. I don't foresee us getting to that mark, so maybe we would have more information then, but just something to think about. So thank you. I'm done.
Councilmember Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug, I'm going to throw out some numbers, and please correct me, but roughly 60% of the county is not under a mask mandate. Is that accurate?
If you were to take the population of Oshkosh being roughly 66,000 and dividing it by the roughly 170,000, sounds about right.
So our numbers are declining with roughly 60% of the county not masking. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't say that 60% of the county isn't masking. They're just not currently under a mandate. I think it's pretty common knowledge that masking is really the most appropriate behavior right now, although we certainly are seeing a relaxation in that over time.
And I agree. If somebody asks me to wear a mask, I certainly wear a mask. It's just a common courtesy. You threw out a number a while back that and again, I really want you to make sure that I'm getting the facts out there to all the folks, but you said with the testing that's going on, if our numbers get under 30 or under 3% of positive cases, we're doing a very good job. Is that accurate?
Yes, 3% is a great target for percent positivity, especially if, combined with other metrics. There's really no one metric that stands alone. We really need to consider, multiple variables.
And I understand we're at 2% right now?
A little over that, yes.
So we're doing great with 60% not being covered under the mask mandate.
Well, that's a fairly recent phenomenon, and our percent positivity has been in that 2 to 3% range, 2 to 3.5% range over the last month or so. So as a community, we're doing far better than we were before. I would say that our burden level is still high, and we'd like to see it a lot lower before we would make any recommendations to, for instance, stop masking. At this point, most of the county isn't under a requirement, but we certainly are still encouraging it. We have an advisory in place, and that's still really the best behavior, combined with distancing, getting scheduled for your vaccination, that we can do right now.
Do we have any other communities that have their own health, their own health department within our county?
City of Menasha.
And are they currently under a mask mandate?
They are not. And I believe that's partly due to the ability from the loss of the original governor's order, and having to have the necessary language and ordinance in place in order to even do that. The other option, of course, is to do what the city of Oshkosh has done and to do that as a governmental body as opposed to a local health department.
Yeah, and I think you can tell where I'm going with this, but I recently got my vaccine. I don't think it's anybody's business. I just want to share it, but there was zero line when I went into Walgreens. They actually called me to remind me that I needed my second vaccine at Walgreens. I walked in, there was nobody there. I walked in and got it. So is anybody waiting to get their vaccine right now that you're aware of? Is there a line or a wait to get your vaccine?
most of the pharmacies are scheduling appointments for vaccine. It's not really necessarily a walk-in, so they can manage the flow. We have recently gone, from an appointment base to a walk-in base, and we have had a decrease in demand for vaccine recently. However, when we have a walk-in, there certainly could be a line, and we're trying to work with all of the community vaccination partners to, make sure that people can get a vaccine fairly easily and fairly timely. Yes, gone are the days where we, have, people waiting for an hour to get a vaccine, but certainly there are still many people seeking vaccine, and we're trying to accommodate them the best way we can.
But the vaccines are readily available in your opinion?
Yeah, if you want a vaccine right now, you should be able to get one pretty easily, within a week.
And again, my concern is that the vaccine is readily available. Getting back to Mr. Ford's proposal, just some quick math, another 25,000 people would have to get vaccinated to meet that criteria. And my real concern is continuing to mask when our numbers are going down. The vaccine is readily available. 60% of the county is not under a mask mandate. The city of Menasha has their own health department. They're not under a mask mandate. I struggle with extending this. I just don't see any facts to extend this mask mandate. And I know you and I differ, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate everything you've done. But the facts just aren't adding up here for me. And I want to thank you for your time.
I see City Attorney Praska wanted to weigh in, and then Councilmember Hanson after him.
I just have hopefully a clarification from Councilmember Ford about his proposed amendment. Right, just so we all know what we're talking about. The ordinance as it exists now indicates that it will end either on a date certain or until the termination of the state of emergency. So the question for Councilmember Ford is, what you're proposing, is that in addition to those two items, or does it replace it? So for example, it could end on a date certain, whatever date that is, or the 50%, or the state of emergency goes away.
Yeah, so some background for the rest of the council. I did send a draft of this earlier to city staff, and it's meant to be inclusive. In other words, this is a third way that this can end. It does not replace the fact that this ends, or we have to reconsider this in 30 days. That will continue to go on under what I proposed.
I see. Does that make sense to you folks? City Attorney Praska?
Right. So just so it's clear, either if Councilmember Ford's motion is approved, then at that point the ordinance will end either May 1st or May 31st, or upon reaching 50% of fully vaccination, or the state of emergency has been lifted, whichever comes first. So if on May 31st we're only at 42% or something less than 50% of people being fully vaccinated, it would still end because it would reach that first date certain metric. So it's not going to go on forever as it's proposed until we reach 50%.
With that said, Madam Mayor, I think the intent of staff would be that the last meeting in May, we would bring this back again. So I think that's what was done last month, with the expectation you would be discussing it tonight. And that would be my expectation, with or without Councilmember Ford's amendment.
All right, Councilmember Hanson and then Ford.
I have a question, Councilmember Ford and Doug, if you could weigh in on it. When would we expect 50% vaccination rate to occur? Is there a timetable that you're looking at for that, or because we already have the May 31st, but do you have anything to add on to that? Or are you just saying 50% because 50% is, half and half kind of number, easy, cut and dry?
Council, is that directed at Councilmember Ford? Because Councilmember Ford's the one who proposed the amendment.
Yes, him and Doug, if he has anything to weigh in on that, with how fast people are going in to get this done, to get their vaccinations. If Councilmember Ford first, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, well, just to clarify, my intent is to introduce an incentive for vaccination while providing a metrics-based path that is clear to the public of how they can end this mask mandate, which has been something that has been asked of us throughout this mandate. And the 50% number, as I stated, it's not perfect, but if you do look at the percentage of individuals in the county that have been infected, that does get us closer to that magical 80% herd immunity idea. It's also tied to the fact that we have 40% of the residents in our county that have at least one vaccine. So that shows me that that's not I don't think that's an unreasonable amount of progress out there to be had, that 10%. I think also reflects the reality that there's going to be eventually additional eligibility groups. So I would not discount the ability as we get younger, who's getting vaccines, 12 and over, let's say, for that number to increase rapidly. And I guess I don't share some of the pessimism of others here about our ability to reach that 50%. I think that we will, and I'm excited to see what our community can do.
And I'd like to, I guess, hear from Mr. Guerin also, whether or not the capacity is there to service those 25,000 people with that vaccine in that time frame. So is it achievable? I'm sorry, first answer Ms. Hanson's, and then I just added a piece. My apologies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Councilor Ford is right on. I mean, everything that he said, we're looking at an increase in eligibility for the 12 to 16-year-olds in May. So that will add to the eligible population. And so that can help to move that number forward. And everything else is really everything else he said was what I would have also said. So I appreciate his comments. And in terms of capacity, absolutely. If there, we'd love to see an increase in demand. And we would certainly, if we found ourselves in a situation where it was looking like people were having trouble getting a vaccine, we would expand capacity again.
All right, Councilmember Mukarauer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two questions for County Health Director Guerin, if you don't mind. Last week, I don't want to put you on the spot to try to forecast what we're going to do this week, but last week, can you give me the rough number on how many vaccinations, how many shots were in arms last week? Or,
yeah,
the last 7 days or.
Sure. I'd have to pull those numbers. I'd really be throwing out an estimate if I gave you a number right now. I can, if you continue, I might be able to pull those numbers for you. It's several thousand. I mean, it's I think I think the update that I saw today, it showed an increase of a couple of thousand vaccines from the last time we had done a report. So I mean, we're still seeing, thousands a week being vaccinated. I just couldn't tell you how many, and I can give you a quick breakdown on how that's happening. I mean, roughly 60% of those are occurring in the healthcare system. About 20% of those are occurring in public health. Probably about 15% of those are occurring in pharmacies, and then 20%, I'm throwing numbers out here, another 20% from other sources. So hopefully those numbers added up, because that was just off the top of my head, but we are still seeing thousands a week.
Okay. Was it expected, did you expect, or did public health expect that demand would drop off as dramatically as it has in the last, relatively short period of time for the large vaccination sites. Because as you mentioned, through healthcare providers, retail locations, pharmacies and such, they're now, they're pulling their weight, or they're putting lots of shots in arms. Was that expected to have such a drop off? Because, PR wise, it looks pretty bad when we've got a lot of shots available at a vaccination site like Sunnyview or at the Culver Welcome Center in UWO. We've got shots available. We've got hundreds of slots available, and they're not getting filled. So was that expected?
So it was expected at some point. We knew that we would be, condensing down clinics, especially the mass vax ones, when there was, sufficient vaccine and capacity within the rest of the community. Another example would be flu shots. We don't give flu shots as a health department, just because there are so many resources within the community in order to get one. So we knew it would happen. It happened sooner than we had hoped for, and it happened quicker than we expected. Although we really had an indication, that it was coming, within about a 1 to 2 week period, but it certainly happened sooner and faster than we would hope for.
I appreciate that. I have other comments that I'll save to once this goes back to the general floor on the full motion, because we've got to keep it to the amendment. I appreciate where Councilmember Ford's coming from. We've had some good conversations over the last several months on this topic. He and I see very alike. We happen to disagree on a few parts, but I love where he comes from and how he's trying to put it together. And the motivation tool, a goal is a good thing. I just happen to disagree on one little part. The metric itself is arbitrary. 50% is the starting point. As we've found over the last 12 months, the goal will be moved. The goalpost will not be reached. It's unfortunate. That's that sentiment that now is out there. And so, 50% is an arbitrary number. Is 60 more? Would county health director feel more comfortable? This is a rhetorical. Would you feel more comfortable with 60 or 70? I'm going to answer probably yeah. But, that's a 60 or 70 is probably 12 months away. That's not the short term. So I've got some issues with picking an arbitrary number as a target, but I appreciate the sentiment. I'm trying to put that goal out for people. So I commend Councilmember Ford. He won't get my support on the amendment, but I appreciate what he's trying to do with this. So I'll turn it back.
I guess I'd just like to comment on that. It appears to me it's not an arbitrary number, because if you do the math for 31 days in May, at 800 a day, I believe was a number we were given of capacity of vaccination administration. That's 24,800. So that seems to be the number or the goal, and not an arbitrary number. But I see also Councilmember Wojciechowski had his hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the feeling like it's an arbitrary number when it's by itself. And I've just been kind of thinking, and I heard Doug say when he said 3%, what was that, for under 3% positive rate, is a very good indication that we're doing good. And I'm almost thinking that should be included as another metric in keeping this mask mandate. If we're at a certain percentage of vaccines and we're also under a certain percentage of positive rates, that kind of gives a little more, I don't know, evidence behind what we're doing. And that 3% number is less arbitrary, as you've stated. So, and this is kind of just me throwing that out there, but I'm curious if we would entertain that idea. I'm supportive of having a goal for vaccination rates. I think the higher the better, but we have to be realistic. But I think having something alongside with that helps. But that's just my feelings on that right now.
Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, just real quick, two things. First, in response to Councilmember Wojciechowski's comment, I mean, my point well taken. I would argue that complexity and ambiguity has been shown to be our enemy in our public health response to COVID. That's not always fair, but I think that's the reality. And I think meeting the public where the public is at I don't think it's smart for us to have multiple targets. I just don't think that's realistic. To Councilmember Mugarauer's point, I mean, point well taken. I teach research methods, so every number is just arbitrary. They stand for something else. But to your point about moving targets, I mean, this puts a target in our ordinance. We hit that target. The mask mandate in Oshkosh goes away. There's nothing moving about that target in that regard. I understand you could be talking about different public health targets we have set, or we've heard from the county, or we've heard from national levels. But when we're talking specifically about the Oshkosh mask mandate, we passed this with this amendment in there. That's in our ordinance. We hit 50%, it's gone.
Shall we call the question on the amended motion?
Erickson? Ford?
Aye.
Mugarauer?
No.
Hanson?
Aye.
Miller? Miller?
No.
Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Palmieri?
Aye.
Carried 5-2.
All right. So now we need to go back to the motion as amended in full. Councilmember Ford.
I'm happy to talk first. Sorry, I've already been a little long-winded tonight, so I'll try not to be too loud with this. But I guess I've struggled with this. Why extend? This is still just a brutal issue. It's a brutal issue. I'm sure that none of us thought we'd still be dealing with a year into the pandemic, but it's still here. It's still causing disruptions. We still have a segment of our community that sees the mask mandate as an attack on their personal liberty. We still have vaccine hesitancy out there, as we just discussed. We still have people and businesses hurting for all kinds of reasons. So I just wanted to respond quickly to a few of the things that were emailed to me or said to me over the last couple of weeks. The first is that the mask mandate is a slippery slope towards more regulation or more government control. I mean, I go back to when we were at the height of this thing. We had more serious actions floated, city-imposed shutdowns, occupancy restrictions. And there was public pressure on all of us to go that route. We stood on that slippery slope and we didn't go down it. We resisted it. And I know to this day, I got friends and possibly spouses that disagree with my approach on that regard. But I have no designs on anybody's liberty. I don't think anybody here does. And I can say, please trust me, but I would ask you to rather verify and look at that track record over the past year and what we did and what we didn't do. We went out of our way to make sure we were not taking actions that were inequitably hurting people's livelihoods. Doesn't mean that people's livelihoods were not hurt. Didn't mean that people and businesses didn't suffer, but we did not pick and choose who suffered at the local level. I've been told that this is a moving target. Well, with the amendment we just passed, that's no longer the case. We can argue about the appropriateness of the metric, whether it's too low, whether it's too high, but it's there. For the segment of the community that really wants clarity, there's clarity in it. I've been told horror stories just today. Someone emailed me about people with medical conditions being shamed for not wearing a mask. And I guess, this is a public health policy. Can't stress that enough. We all take actions as individuals. And of course it matters, but we all have to recognize that we get through this as a community. There are exemptions out there. When you see one individual here, one individual there not wearing a mask, and you go out of your way to be a jerk about it, you're not helping anything. You're making all of this stuff harder. And then finally, I've been told quite passionately by members of the public that I'm not and we are not the ultimate authority on public health. And I wholeheartedly agree. That is the truth. All of us, elected officials, city staff, local businesses, parents, heck, nurses, doctors. I'm married to a nurse, so I can say that. We're all doing the best we can to navigate what is the biggest kind of community challenge of our time. And we're just lucky enough to be serving on city council during this. But I ask you to take me at my word. I know I take everybody else in this room at their word, that we're committed to doing this in good faith. So however this ends up tonight, I hope people get vaccinated. I hope people are kind to one another. I hope we can, if we do pass this and this metric is 50%, let's get let's rally around that. Let's get to that magical point where we agree on something. Whether you agree or disagree with some of the policies, we can all agree that we want to get past the mask mandate. We want to get past COVID. This could be a point of unity. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Councilmember Ford. Other council members want to discuss the full motion? I'd just like to say too that, yes, we've heard from many individuals who've been both for and against a mask ordinance in the absence of a state or county requirement. And one of the early things that I go back to is how many business owners contacted us begging for this because they did not want to have to argue or be confrontational with, or their employees to be confrontational with customers. And that this is actually, I appreciate Councilmember Ford work in this, because this does give us, again, like was said, a chance to rally around and, get competitive here as to reaching that number and allowing our guests. As many of you know, we are expecting our population to grow substantially over the summer with many special events that are coming back. So let's be hospitable and, be safe in that process. I will be supporting this. Councilmember Wojciechowski.
Madam Mayor, I guess my comments are in aligned with Councilman Ford and yours as well. And really it's that, we want to get through this and we have to do it together. And I'm happy to take the blame for supporting this if it means that we are also throwing our support behind businesses and individuals who support this, because really that's what we're here to do, is create a safe community. And, there's been a lot of discussion about how we are the only, city is surrounded by places that have no ordinances. And I see that as a point of pride that, we are willing to stand up and do what's best for our community. And something so simple and so small as wearing a mask has such a big positive impact on our community and helps us get to the point that we need to. And really, there have been a lot of concessions in this specific policy, whether it is the long list of exceptions or medical compliances that are allowed for not wearing them, and encouraging businesses to offer those alternative methods of, supplying their services or products, whether that be curbside or delivery. We've been getting innovative and we've been doing the best we can to make sure that we are supporting these businesses. And based off a lot of the emails I've gotten, they're thankful that, we're able to support them in that endeavor, so they don't have to say, no, we're not going to let you in because we're trying to keep our employees safe. I think they appreciate what we're doing. And a vast majority of the emails I got were in support of this. It's a month longer as we're heading into summer. It's going to get busier. We're having more events. And I think it's just, the responsible thing to do is to give this another month to see where the numbers are and take this up. And if our vaccination rates get over 50%, then it goes away. We're encouraging people to get vaccinated, which should be the goal. Trying to get misinformation away and encourage people to do what's best. So I will be supporting this, and I hope my fellow council members will as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Erickson and then Mugrauer.
Thank you. I'll make this brief. I don't need to repeat what has already been said, but I also support this. I think, we're not out of this quite yet. We have to be diligent. I wish we could, be done with masking, but if we let up too soon, we're putting kind of all of our hard work at risk. So I'll just, repeat, I think I'm glad that we have a metric like vaccination tied to this. This gives us a common goal as a community, hopefully something that we can all strive for and rally around. But, I hope that folks, if they're interested and able to receive their vaccine, that they can do so. And we just need to hang tight and keep on course. So thanks.
Councilmember Mugrauer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep it brief as well. we've been without a state mandated health order and mandate for masks for about a month. And in that time, if you've looked at the numbers in terms of some of our sister communities as well as our surrounding counties, I think it's appropriate to look at communities that are similar to us, and they're also regionally close to us. And in that time, very few have municipal or county mandates, and so many don't. And yet their numbers for April have either held and or improved without a mandate in place. So there are counties and municipalities around us that are achieving their public health goals without a mandate. That the people are doing what is right, that the message is working, but they don't need a mandate to achieve that. That's all I'm advocating for. The mandate itself is no longer needed. The public will do what's right. Numbers are proving it regionally as well as in the state with sister communities and similar counties that the public health goals are being met without a mandate. So I'll be voting against. It's probably not a surprise, but I appreciate the dialogue. It was very good to hear from our new council members this evening on this topic that us veterans have been challenged with for the last 12 months. So I was very appreciative of everybody and their participation this evening, and it's always much appreciated.
All right, thank you. And I'm sorry, but I'm not seeing everyone's visual here. So if anyone else has their hand up that I'm missing, my apology. Shall we take a vote?
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
No.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
No.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 5-2.
All right. We are now at the 2-hour mark, and traditionally when we get to that point in time, we can take a 5 or 10 minute recess here for folks. And I just like to know if anyone would like to continue or if you'd like to go ahead and take a brief recess.
Madam Mayor, it's Councilmember Mugrower. I'd suggest we take that break, if not for us, for city staff to allow them a few moments. We've got still quite a bit of an agenda, so.
Yes. All right. So we will recess until 8:10.
Hey, Mark, are you going to sleep in your office tonight since this is going late?
Oh, we've done later meetings than this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking over at my old street sign from Rancho Palos Verdes, California. My 3 years there, they averaged ending at midnight.
Sir Ford, do not jinx us.
I was good. Hey. Don't worry. I do want to
My hats off to you for your efficiency in getting through, some complicated stuff. I can tell you some stories, but they would not be appropriate here right now.
Is back on?
Is who?
Matt?
Yeah. Me?
Hey, my laptop is getting kind of wonky. If for some reason it goes down, you're on deck.
Affirmative. Sounds good. And
like right now, I
want...
can only see two video pictures and lots of little exclamation marks. So
do you want to take an extra minute and just come join me in council chambers? It never seemed to be an issue up here. There's plenty of space.
that would require me to put my mask back on.
Madam Mayor, one of the things you might want to do. One of the things you might want to do sometimes, I think it's helped if you turn off your video. That sometimes gives you enough bandwidth to work okay.
My issue is not being able to see the other videos. And so I cannot see who's raising their hand to speak. Yes.
That would be a problem.
Yes. So I don't know if it's the signal in this room or if it's my laptop, but right now I can only see 5. How many do you guys see?
I see 6. Matt's not on. Now I see 7 because Matt's on. Just the city clerk and I, and then the council members. Now we're up to all council members are visible except you, Madam Mayor.
All right, we'll try it. All right, so we are back in session, reconvening at 8:12. Shall we call the roll again, Pam?
It's not necessary, but if you'd like, I will.
Okay. All right. I guess just for
here.
Yeah.
Okay. Erickson?
Here.
Ford?
Here.
Mugrower?
Here.
Hanson?
Here.
Miller?
Still here.
Wojciechowski?
Here.
Palmieri?
Here.
Present 7.
All right. Next, we're going to go into new resolutions 21-222. Approve initial resolution authorizing not exceeding 8,765,000 general obligation bonds with the city of Oshkosh, Winnebago County, Wisconsin, for the public purpose of I, street improvements, and II, parks and public grounds. Can we have a motion and a second on 21-222?
So moved.
Second.
Mugrower and Ford, thank you. Discussion. All right, seeing none, please call the roll.
Erickson? Aye. Ford?
Aye.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Hanson?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
All right, moving on, resolution 21-223, approve resolution directing the advertisement and sale not to exceed $8,765,000 aggregate principal amount of general obligation corporate purpose bonds, $5,550,000 aggregate principal amount of general obligation promissory notes, $7,635,000 aggregate principal amount of stormwater utility revenue bonds, $5,970,000 aggregate principal amount of water system revenue bonds, $14,815,000 aggregate principal amount of sewer system revenue bonds of the city of Oshkosh, Winnebago County, Wisconsin. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mugrauer and Erickson, discussion. I do not see any hands up. Please call the roll.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Oberauer,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Resolution 21-224, approve general development plan for a commercial development at the southwest corner of West South Park Avenue and West 20th Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Councilmember Mugrauer and Ford. Discussion. Mr. Lyons, a quick question on this, or Mr. Davis. What is a brief summary of this item for those
Yes.
watching?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the redevelopment of the former Packers Pub site in conjunction with part of the former LaSure site on South Park Avenue. Developers looking at removing the existing buildings out there and redeveloping the area. As part of that, they rezoned to a planned development, and now they're seeking their general development or their concept level plan development approval. They are indicating 2 buildings at this time. One at the northwest corner. They've identified it as a possible auto parts store in the future. They are still seeking a final tenant and working through that. And then a possible medical related use at the northeast corner. Again, as this is only the general development plan, it's that concept level approval. And then they will have to come back for SIP or specific implementation plan once they have final tenants and layout designs.
Thank you for that summary. Do other council members have any questions or discussion? Please call the roll.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Oberauer,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
All right, resolution 21-225, approved development agreement with Cabrini School Lofts LLC for redevelopment of Cabrini School.
So moved.
All right, motion by Erickson,
Second.
second by Ford. Discussion. It's a rather exciting project here. Looks like we have Ms. Nyforth here if anyone has questions. Councilmember Mugrauer, I see you're going for it right away.
Yeah, well, just a brief explanation. I think for the people at home, this is council's making an investment in the community in terms of low income senior housing. I think that's important to note that it's also a reuse of a historic and old building here in Oshkosh, former church, and it's on the east side of town. So appreciate the developer and all they're going through and all they're going to do for us. But I think it was good to note that one of our things is housing in this community, and this is an investment in low income senior housing to help that part of our population that needs that assistance. So appreciate everything. Thank you.
Councilmember Hanson.
I would like to say thank you for the developer to taking on this task. Like Matt said, it is a great building to be saved. I know that there is a lot of work that will have to go into it, but keeping the historical feel and vibe of our city and keeping the building updated, that's awesome. And thank you. So thank you. Thanks again.
Yes, and how many units, remind us again, how many units that will be? Is that 28?
35 low-income senior units.
35, okay. I'm getting that one mixed up with Miles Kimball, 28 on the mind. All right. Okay, other questions, comments, discussion? All right, let's please call the roll.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski. Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
All right, next we have Resolution 21-226, approve conditional use permit for commercial outdoor entertainment use at 2126 Algoma Boulevard. Plan Commission recommends denial. We'll need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, Ford and Mugrower. Discussion. Mr. Lyons, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilmember Hanson.
I just wanted to say that there have been in the area that have reached out to me, and I'm assuming other council members personally, speaking on terms of how they would like to see this denied. And then also hearing from the owner earlier did give a lot of insight from her side as well. I know that this is I believe a permanent permit. Do they already have a temporary one for, like, they have to renew yearly?
Hello?
Do they already have something in place that they can have like every once in a while bands? Because it seemed like they previously have been having bands and events at their place. Would this is a permanent, like, yearly thing that they don't have to renew then that we're voting on?
Would you like to answer, Madam Mayor?
It's my understanding that the conditional use permit is renewed on a regular basis. Depends on the details that were set out and the conditions that were set. I know some are a year, some are multi-year. And from what I'm reading, they're asking for this to be a year-round expansion.
I think Mr. Lyons can answer the question a little more detail with his knowledge of this application.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a couple of issues at play here. A property owner can get a temporary use permit for up to 3 events a year. The applicant in this case has held events out there in the past where they had a band and live music under the temporary use statute. Again, up to 3 times a year. To go above 3 times a year, you must obtain a conditional use permit, which is what the applicant's looking at today. At Plan Commission, they indicated that they were looking to host 4 events a year. So that's kind of that distinction of temporary use can go up to 3. As soon as you exceed that, then it goes into the realm of the conditional use permit.
Thank you very much, Mark.
And I apologize. I thought Mark asked me if I would like to answer, which was a little, I think just cut out a little in there. So, yes, much better than I had for you. Other council members who have questions, Councilmember Miller and then Ford.
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, it's been a while since I've done this. My apologies. So I talked to a couple of the surrounding neighbors. I've also heard from the owner tonight, and it sounds like she's pretty much willing to do anything under the conditional use permit. Yeah, I think the neighbors' number one concern was how late how late these things were going, and I think this is till 11 p.m. Is that accurate?
Correct. As recommended by staff before Plan Commission, we recommended that the time allotment be tied to our noise ordinance for ease of enforceability. Our noise ordinance on weekends, Fridays and Saturday nights would cut off at 11 p.m. That would be the citywide noise ordinance.
So if us doing anything less than that would make this a one-off deal, is that accurate?
Potentially, I mean, if it's something that the council could entertain adding additional conditions to the CUP under the state statute for conditional use permits. In order to add conditions, they must be reasonable, objectable, and quantifiable conditions. So something with a time allotment could potentially meet those requirements under the state statute.
I think the neighbors didn't express that they would like this shut down, and their concerns were, I think, the late music, young children, and I'd like to work with both parties here. We know how much the restaurants have suffered through this whole COVID thing. I think there's a compromise here for all parties. And I guess I would suggest that maybe we start out at 10 p.m. And see how things go here. And I think that's a compromise that should keep everybody happy. And as long as they promise to police the neighboring properties, you know, the beer bottles and cans and things like that after one of these events, if we could also make that part of it. So any thoughts? I'm not convoluting this, I hope. Is that too convoluting, Mark?
So yeah, I mean, if you wanted to amend it to add that condition of 10 p.m., I think it could be considered a reasonable condition.
Okay.
Councilmember Hanson?
I know that the owner had said something about putting fences in. Are we able to give the temporary for this year and come back to it next year when the fences are installed, when they show under the temporary that they're able to stick with the conditions that they're saying they will, before we go ahead and give them the full agreement? Right now, according to homeowners nearby, people are walking through their yards, and I understand that the bar staff goes and collects trash out of the neighborhood afterwards, but if people are walking through your yard at 10, 11, 12, bar close, that's not the best, especially with young kids around. And I understand, I want to help businesses as much as possible, but if she were able to make the changes that she needed to, and we come back to this next year or whenever the next permit is to subjugation, I think that'd be the best route for us to go right now.
Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, for Mark Lyons, just to clarify, we right, if they did a temporary use permit, they would be allowed to have up to 3 of these concerts, but as you said, compared to the 6, but the difference would also be that they would have to stop the music at sundown as opposed to 11 p.m., correct?
Correct. Under the temporary use permit ordinance, those are only permitted during dusk to dawn hours. So at dusk, the live music would have to end under a temporary use permit.
Okay, and then just real quick for fellow council. So at Plan Commission, it was a split vote. It was 5-4 recommendation of denial. You can read the minutes to see everybody's justification there. Me personally, where I struggled with was one of the requirements for a conditional use permit is that it would not result, this is under state law, it would not result in a substantial or undue adverse impact on nearby property. And we had 2 of the neighbors that spoke pretty forcefully about that adverse impact. And I don't think it had anything to do with a lack of will from the bar owner. I think it was just a situation where it is the location of the bar and the size of the property. That was my take, but I want to make sure everyone knows that it was a split vote. So there was differences of opinion at Plan Commission.
And council members, just want to point out the Hutchisons who were registered to speak are here, and apparently were not alerted to the fact that they could speak at the beginning of the meeting, and are have asked to be allowed to speak to this. Council's pleasure.
No objection.
All right, then, let's see here. So is Scott Hutchison available to speak?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, go ahead, sir. I apologize for the miscommunication. Typically, those comments are done at the beginning of the meeting. So please go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to just kind of go through the reasons that we're opposed to the permit. And that's going to 11 o'clock. I mean, our house is, the bedroom side of our house is 100 feet away from where the stage is going to be. So, I mean, to me, I mean, for us, this is like a miniature water fest in our backyard. And that's unreasonable to allow outdoor music to go on that late, that close to residences. That's where we live. And then the frequency of it is also an issue. And I know they dialed it down to 4, but it's still, it really kind of, wrecks your Saturday. You can't go out in the backyard and have a casual conversation with the noise at that volume. And the other thing is the traffic on Wilson Avenue gets pretty excessive. It's very difficult. It's difficult. I mean, it's really when people are parked on both sides, it's one way. And I know if I went out fishing, I'd really have a difficult time getting my boat back in my garage, for example. Probably another item that's more significant is the run-ins that I know my wife once had a run-in with some customers from there during the daytime for some event. And they were bringing a drunk friend back and threw him in the car. And when my wife, challenged them, hey, what are you doing? They were, cursing at her and stuff. And so, I mean, that sort of thing is really unpleasant. We've had some other minor issues like that too, with intoxicated people on our properties. So it's, we're right in the middle of it. And and then the trash, I mean, the owner says she picks up the trash. Well, I mean, I sent you guys pictures that we took when we got home from church. So that's another thing we have to deal with. And finally, the commission voted it down. So I mean, it's really disruptive to our lives. And I think that, I mean, I know we're trying to help the businesses out, but with the location they have, it's just not conducive for this type of activity on a regular basis. So I just want to ask you guys to vote no tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. Is there another person waiting to speak on this also? I see 2 Scott Hutchisons. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this from the public? Okay. All right, Councilmember Mugarauer. I'm sorry?
This is Harold Munzer, the bar manager at Northside. We have.
I'm sorry, what's the name, sir?
Harold Munzer.
And did you register to speak, sir?
We're together. This is I'm with Sherry.
I don't know how to make this.
Oh, I see.
How you doing?
Go ahead, please.
We are just looking to have the opportunity. We appreciate his input, but we are looking just for the same opportunities other establishments do have in town. And we do walk around. It was a little later in the afternoon that particular day that he was talking at our last event. That was an indoor event. We have also acquired some cones. We were willing to cone off that area in front of his house to help with his getting his boat in and his concerns. We are in the process with the planning commission to get a fence put up, hopefully within the next week or two, because we're meeting with them, I believe, on Thursday. But we're trying to make all the necessary, like bringing it back to 10 o'clock to try and compromise. We just like the opportunity that other establishments in the area similar to ours have been given. That's all we're asking for.
I'm sorry, was it Wojciechowski and then Hanson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I have a few questions. I'm struggling to decide on this issue because on the one hand, I do want to respect the neighborhood, and they do have valid concerns that it can be disruptive. But on the other hand, I don't want to feel like I'm picking and choosing what businesses can operate. I think we do need to find a compromise. I just think about other places that are in similar situations. Being a student at UW Oshkosh, I think of the beer gardens event that happens at Kelly's, and that is a loud event right next to many residential places, and they go way past midnight, with loud noises, and that has never been an issue in a high residential area for campus. But I just want to be consistent what we're doing, and I think finding some type of compromise. This conditional permit, I believe you said, was only for 4 events. 4 events in an entire year, and I'm guessing they're probably going to be more so during the summer months. Doesn't seem like, as someone said, daily traffic or events are happening if it's just 4 events. But one of my questions is, if this were to be denied, would this establishment still have the temporary license, or would they have to reapply for a temporary one? And I guess that's for Mark.
So even if the conditional use permit would be denied, they'd still be afforded the opportunity of the ordinance to apply for the 3 temporary use permits per year.
All right, and then and realistically, that would just be one less event, because you said for the temporary or for the conditional, they were only hoping to do 4 events.
Correct. At Planning Commission, they indicated a desire for 4 events a year.
Okay. Well, I would like to see us try to find some type of compromise. I think doing it to the 10 o'clock is a good compromise. I would like to make an amendment to this to make that happen. I don't know exactly how to word that, but I would like to make that amendment.
So you're offering a motion to amend it to the 10 p.m.?
Yep, kind of what Bill was talking about, or sorry, Councilwoman Miller, about amending it to make it 10 instead of 11.
Was that your intention, Councilmember Miller, to make a motion?
Yes, I was throwing it out there for discussion. I think both parties have some legitimate concerns, and again, and Aaron, please call me Bill all the time. I appreciate that. So thank you. But I think what Aaron and I are trying to do is throw this out there for discussion. I think there is a compromise here. I do believe these people, the owners, have a genuine interest in cooperating with the neighbors. And I do also feel the neighbors have some legitimate concerns. And to allow them to have 4 events as opposed to 3, and we can review this again a year from now, make this a 1-year conditional use permit, and put the caveat that 10 p.m. Be the cutoff. And I think that's fair for all parties, and we can take a look at this a year from now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hanson and then Ford. And we're still on the motion to amend, but we need a second before going further.
I'll second that.
Order.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last piece. Okay, Councilmember Miller seconded. Councilmember Ford, did you say something else?
Can I do a quick point of order?
Yes.
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark Lyons, but under what came to Plan Commission, it was 11 o'clock on weekends, 10 o'clock on weekdays. So we'd have to address that, correct, in any motion?
Correct. The noise ordinance specifies 10 p.m. on weekdays, 11 p.m. on weekends. You could modify that any way you wish with an additional condition. And just for reference for council, a conditional use permit is granted perpetually every year unless a sunset clause or a condition is placed on it that it have a limited time frame.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on amending per the time. So are we looking at 9 p.m. on weekdays, 10 p.m. on weekends? Or did I get that wrong?
It was my intent. Oh, sorry, Aaron. It was my intent to make it 10 p.m. across the board. I'm not sure if Aaron agrees with that.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
Okay. And then I'm not sure if I'm doing this procedurally properly, but it's come to my attention that in the past, when us downtown folks were dealing with the expansion of outdoor spaces and getting a lot of calls, so there were quite a bit of residential concerns about not just Cowleys, not picking on Cowleys, but the side yards that got added. A lot of people really enjoyed that, but then the folks who were trying to sleep or work, early hours or whatever, were having issues with that. But one of the solutions that was talked about, and perhaps Mark Lyons, I don't know if you were here yet, was adding outdoor acoustic panels to the fencing to help mitigate some of that noise. And it didn't actually happen with the last one when we discussed that, but I guess I'm just wondering if we could also add that condition in this circumstance. The owner seems to be rather, yeah.
Excuse me for one moment, Madam Mayor. Matt's got his hand up. I don't know if you could see him, but he's been raising his hand a lot. So I'm not sure if you can see him or not.
It was my turn to talk.
Actually, it was Courtney. Courtney's
okay.
next.
Okay.
Yep.
All
but
right.
thank you.
No, I
next.
know you're having technical difficulties, so thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, am I good? Okay. So I'm looking at one of the lot pictures here, and you guys, or the Sherry has drawn out around it where the fence would go. And now from where I see it, it says snow fence. Are you planning on putting in a tall 8-foot privacy fence, something like say Fletch's or Peabody's did, to kind of corral people in the right direction? Or is that a legitimate 3-4 foot tall snow fence? Sound and keeping people out of other people's yards. I can also have those panels put on it. And also I see there is space, grass space around. Is there any way we could add some trees into that area to try to muffle sound even more? If the bar owners are saying they're willing to do whatever it takes to have these events, could those things be done this year, have a temporary license, and then next year we reconvene to get the four event conditional license? Is that something that'd be not, able to happen? I feel like that would be the healthy medium. Is if they're saying they can do all these things, let's give them a year. They can understand that, because you can't get everything done in 2 weeks. I know that you can say you can get a fence up in 2 weeks, but to get everything you need to done, you need some time. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I have just one or two questions for Mr. Lyons. Are there any other establishments, basically this is a tavern, this is a bar, is there any other similar establishments that have a conditional use permit to do what they're requesting to do in Oshkosh?
Yes, we have a number of establishments in the city that do have conditional use permits for commercial outdoor entertainment. We also, 2018 or so, modified the downtown area. The downtown area required a conditional use permit for commercial outdoor entertainment, and we went through the process of a ordinance amendment to remove that requirement to make them permitted in the downtown area. But we do have these scattered throughout the city.
Okay, and then those, are any of them the ones that we currently have on the books? Are any of them restricted in terms of end time for the amplified music? In terms of this one, we've got a motion on the floor to end it earlier. That sets a dangerous precedent. Where we regularly talk about maintaining our expectations for everyone, that we treat people equally, no matter of their, no matter what. And so, just, does anybody else have a extra condition put on them to end earlier? I don't believe so. But
Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but I can look into that and get back to council.
That's one of my concerns. I get it. I'm right there with council members Miller and Wojciechowski, and I think what I'm hearing from several is similar sentiment. Let's find a way to work with both parties. We don't want to choose either one. We want both to flourish and both to walk away in a better place. But I don't want to set a dangerous precedent of putting them in a different spot than the expectations we place on others. So,
Councilmember Wojciechowski and then Ford.
Thank you. Just to follow up to Councilman Muhrauer's point, I agree with you completely. Like I said, I don't want to have to set that precedent. I brought this forward just because they had indicated that this is something that they would be open to make it happen. But I do agree with that. We should be keeping it consistent across the board. But anything we can do to make this happen, but hopefully get both parties on board is my goal. But also I had one question for Councilor Hanson. Just based off your conversation, are you indicating that you would want to table this to take up later? That's kind of the sentiment I was getting, but just wanted to get that clarification.
So I was going to say for now, well, vote in the way of keeping it temporary for this year, see what changes they've progressed and added, including the fence and whatever else, seeing how this year would go, if they can increase their efforts, increase the cones and blocked off parking spaces so it isn't having such an issue in the streets and surrounding areas, and trying to show that they can do these things and get them done correctly before they're given the full 4 events. Because realistically, 3 and 4, I mean, I understand events bringing a lot more money than normal, but overall, it's one year. And if they're really willing for it and show us that they can work for it, it seems like a good option to make it even for both sides. You know what I mean?
All right, so let's see, Councilmember Ford was next. And I'm almost wondering, it sounds like we have to remind folks that if you vote yes, that affirms the Plan Commission's denial. So if I heard what Councilmember Hanson was just saying, you were suggesting to keep this at the temporary, see how they perform over the next year and then come back and reapply. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, that's what I am saying.
Okay. All right. So Councilmember Ford and then Mugrauer.
Yeah, points well taken all around. It's a great conversation. On the idea of precedent, I think it's important to look at this as equity in process as well. We have the CUP process, and the reason it goes through Plan Commission is that we do have, again, under state law, these very specific guidelines by which we can approve or not approve something. And Plan Commission did rule 5-4 against this idea based on one of those conditions. So I think any amendments need to mitigate these conditions, which is not result in a substantial or undue adverse impact on nearby property. I like the spirit. I like where you're going with bringing it down to 10 p.m. I think that's okay. I just want to point out that as written, we would also have to amend it if we want to hold them to 4. Right now it says 6. We'd have to actually change that to 4. And I think if we want to do it as a 1-year pilot, we would also want to amend it to put a sunset clause so that we revisit it after a year to see if that worked out. If we didn't do that and we went the temporary use permit route, if I'm understanding this correctly, as Councilwoman Hanson had said, that would give them the opportunity to apply for three concerts, but those would have to end before the sun went down, which I think from Plan Commission, at least, that was an issue that the applicants had. They want to make sure they can take that later.
And if I could just get some clarification then too from Mark Lyons. Let's see here. So this is zoned differently than the downtown commercial entertainment because it's a neighborhood tavern, correct?
Correct. Our downtown CMU zoning allows this as a permitted by right use commercial outdoor entertainment. The neighborhood mixed use zoning that we have out here requires it as a conditional use permit for outdoor commercial.
Okay. I wanted to confirm that. And then I'm sorry, Councilmember Mugrauer, I think I missed you again.
No, you're okay. Actually, I'm good. I'll reserve till later. I'm good.
All right. So the motion on the floor is amending it on the time. And it sounds like some additional conditions were added on or would have to change. So I believe we need to, I see Councilmember Wojciechowski has a question.
I would just say I would be open to, I don't know if this is a process it goes through, but making those changes that Councilman Ford had offered up. Lowering the event.
Mr. Lyons.
I don't know what it was, but however that would be.
Thank you. Mr. Lyons?
Yes, as submitted to council in the resolution, it does include condition 6, limiting it to 4 events per year. That was one of the conditions that was added by Plan Commission.
Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, thank you for that. I guess I was confused because we voted it down, but I guess the condition that we amended still changed. But it did not have the sunset clause. Is that correct, Mark?
Correct. There is no sunset clause currently within the resolution.
Okay, well then I'd love to, based off of what Councilmember Wojciechowski said, I'd love to offer a friendly amendment to the amendment that has a 1-year sunset clause on the CUP.
As city manager?
Yeah, I think just let Mr. Ford keep going. I'll clarify something later.
Okay.
I will accept that friendly amendment.
All right.
So
let's vote.
So does he accept it?
Councilmember Miller needs to also accept it as a seconded.
Councilmember Miller?
Yeah, I'm struggling now that Matt reminded me of setting precedents and keeping this thing unfair, but I will accept that in this case because I do think both parties want to work together, but I do agree with Matt. We got to be careful with these precedences, and so we're not picking winners and losers when we do this stuff. So in this case, I think both parties want to be flexible. They've offered these things up, so I think for us to not accept them, we'd be foolish. So thank you. So yes, thank you all.
Okay, I did not hear that the party in the residential location was offering additional concessions. Maybe I missed something. All right, are we ready?
Are you looking for an answer from me?
Who spoke?
Oh, this is Scott Hutchinson.
Yes, Mr. Hutchison.
No, I wasn't interested in concessions. I mean, you know, if they can do it till sundown, I mean, we can live with that, but I mean, that's late enough.
All right. Council members, take this to a vote on the amended
Mayor,
The
can I
amendment.
get clarification what exactly the amendment is?
Councilmember Wojciechowski, would you repeat the amendment? The motion to amend?
Yeah, to change the weekend time from 11 to 10 and to add the sunset clause. And I'm not exactly sure what the wording of that was. You'd have to ask Councilman Ford.
Councilmember Ford?
No, that is correct. Mark Lyons had mentioned earlier tonight that we would need to have a sunset clause in there after 1 year if we expected to see this again. Otherwise, it'd be rotational.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure that we all know what we're voting on. So to vote no is to vote yes? Is that, or to vote yes is to vote no?
No,
Madam Mayor?
we're on the amendment.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yeah, city manager?
Yeah, and this is the amendment, and then once it's
Then we
amended,
take it back.
regardless what you do, the resolution before you are the conditions that are laid out. This motion adds some conditions, then you're voting on that. The Plan Commission recommended denial, but if you want to follow the Plan Commission's recommendation, you vote no on the whole motion. I just want to clarify that. Sorry for any confusion. But the resolution says specifically, this conditional use permit is hereby approved with the following conditions. You're adding conditions, which is within your authority, but you're voting in favor of this thing. If you want to allow it, you vote in favor. If you don't want to allow it, you vote against it.
So is that clear? Anybody else need any further clarification? All right, let's take this to the vote as based on the motion to amend. Councilmember Ford, did you want to add something?
Just to be clear, we're voting on the amendment right now,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Mugrover?
Aye.
Hanson?
Okay.
I'm sorry,
No.
Miller? Miller?
Aye.
Wojciechowski?
Aye.
Palmieri?
No.
Carried 5-2.
All right, now we're taking it back to the full motion as amended. Councilmember Erickson?
Thank you. I'll just say I'm really struggling with this one. I understand the need not to set precedent, but we have, different areas of the city and different types of neighborhoods that require different, different types of conditions, and we need to look at that. So yeah, I'm struggling. I'll just put that out there. I don't have any answers, but it's a tough one.
Other council members, discussion on the full motion as amended? Councilmember Miller?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank the owners of the establishment for being flexible. I would hope that you could reach out to this neighbor and accommodate them as much as possible. But I do thank you for your flexibility and your willingness to work with the council and the community. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Wojciechowski?
I guess I would just say, this is conditional. So if those conditions are broken, if they are not followed, it will be taken away, and we will revisit this after the sunset clause if passed. But there are conditions for a reason, and they need to be followed. So I'm confident that the party will do that.
All right, anyone else? All right, please take the roll.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Blumenauer,
Aye.
Hanson,
No.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
O'Meara,
No.
carried 5-2.
All right, then. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone's patience. It got a little bit circular. All right, so next we will go to Resolution 21-227, approve Common Council annual appointments to boards and commissions. May I have a motion and a second?
I move
Councilmember Ford.
Second.
Ford and Wojciechowski. All right, discussion? Councilmember Wojciechowski?
I believe there were 2 committees that were not filled. I'm just curious on that. If they are you planning to do that or reasoning?
Yes, so let me just pull this up real quick here. My bookmark is not bookmarked. All right, there we go. So the CVB, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, is a by invitation only. Councilperson Wojciechowski, that is an external board that, again, their board makes an invitation to have a council member attend, and it makes sense, right? Because we, there are financial issues and there's a lot of overlap. But it's not required by our ordinances and our code. So that's why it's got the little asterisk and pending, because their board would make an invitation to one of our board members or one of our council members. And the other one, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, I am leaving open at the moment to be appointed at a later time.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yep. Do we have any other discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Blumenauer,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
No.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
O'Meara,
Aye.
carried 6-1.
All right then. And council discussion and direction to city manager and future agenda items. Looks like we have a workshop on Clearwell project.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the extension of the mask ordinance, we're going to have that back on the agenda. The Clearwell project is something that Mr. Robbie would like to spend a little time with council on. Obviously, the mask ordinance took some time tonight. I suspect it might again, but I would defer to council in terms of, would you prefer to have a 5:15 workshop to get started so that Mr. Robbie and his staff can make a presentation on the status of the Clearwell project, or just incorporate it into the council meeting as a special presentation? Either way, it'll probably take about a half hour for staff to go through the presentation and do Q&A for you.
Councilmember Mugrauer.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I think it'd probably be appropriate to give him a workshop ahead of time. Besides, it's not the worst idea to give Mr. Robbie a hard and set deadline on when he has to stop talking to us. So, but I think it's probably appropriate.
Great suggestion.
I mean, it's a big $20+ million project, so it certainly warrants lots of discussion and education. Even
Well, I'm sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead, Madam Mayor, please.
No, I was just going to say, in the past, when we've had workshops, sometimes we get information ahead of time, sometimes we don't. Given the magnitude of this, it would seem appropriate that, if we had something to digest ahead of time going into that workshop, if we go that direction, would be helpful.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I've already been working with our consultant and let them know that we would be needing to get you some materials in advance of that.
Excellent.
And to Mr. Mugar, you'll hear more from my consultant than you will from me that night.
And I say that while joking, and I appreciate that Mr. Robbie takes that kind-heartedly. But City Manager Roloff is absolutely right. It's a huge project. It has big implications for the city as well as that neighborhood. But the mayor is absolutely right. It would be wonderful to digest that in advance and prepare questions and things like that, so that we're prepared to move efficiently that evening and use the consultant's time well.
Very good. Thank you for the input. I appreciate that. Madam Mayor, if I may.
Future workshops, yeah.
Future workshops. Subdivision code update. My executive assistant, Diane, has sent the council as well as the Plan Commission, the Advisory Parks Board, Redevelopment Authority. The mayor also suggested including the SAB on this. It would be a virtual workshop because of the sheer volume of people. We're polling, and the polling closes this Friday. So if you could please forward to Diane your preference through the survey that she sent. We'll poll it up and we will report back. It is intended to take place in June. The idea would be there are going to be some new members getting seated on several of the boards and commissions. So we want to make sure that we have the most current membership possible getting this information.
And I also want to remind you too, when we spoke about that, city manager, that we talked about a sequence, a logical sequence, given that the housing study was due out perhaps sometimes in late May, that this would occur after the fact.
I will put Mr. Davis on the spot to answer your question, Madam Mayor. Alan, what's the status of the housing study?
The housing study is underway right now. I can tell you we're not going to have that done in May. My expectation is we'll have it done in June or early July at this point. And keep in mind, the workshop is not for setting any particular policy or making the calls on the ordinance updates that we'll need. But it's one of the factors that council has directed staff to investigate. So we've been doing that, and the housing study is actually well timed in that they'll be able to review our housing needs with the subdivision code and any kind of proposed changes and make any suggestions before we actually adopt the subdivision code update.
Alan, just a question, because I understand where the mayor is kind of, wanting to get some additional insight. It's not that this thing is under wraps, but to the degree that you have any inklings on some of the things that are going to be in the housing study, should questions come up during the course of the subdivision ordinance, could you share some insights with the results? Because it'll at least be in draft review, draft form at that point, and it's not like it's a big secret or anything like that. Do you think you could try to share some insights if the discussion steers that way?
Absolutely. I can't guarantee what we'll have at that point in time. One of the things we're really working on hard is housing affordability, and we're finding the subdivision code one of those issues that make it very difficult to make housing more affordable in Oshkosh or anywhere else right now because of the cost of development. So.
Well, I guess I just want to understand something. Maybe I missed the scope of this subdivision code update. Originally, I was under the impression that it was specific to parkland dedication or fees. Is it beyond that scope?
That
this
is
subdivision code update?
Well beyond that.
Okay.
the subdivision code is everything, and the parkland is just a small piece of the subdivision. So
Okay.
we're
All right.
talking what criteria used for subdivisions, what standards for development, who pays for what and when it comes to the development, and the park fees are just a little piece of that.
So then, the reason why we have everybody at the table on this then is so that it doesn't have to be done 5 times with 5 different groups, right? Yes.
Yes.
All right.
And there are a lot of common interests as well as competing interests, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, the
right.
competing interests are really the challenge. So everybody understands that there's so many different moving parts to this that you may try to achieve one goal and actually go against another goal that you also feel very strongly about. So,
Yep.
sort of like how you did earlier with this bar issue, you know, it's never easy, but you need to get those things straight. And so that's why, you know, Madam Mayor, the comments that you and I discussed, you know, in terms of, you know, housing affordability and everything, there are going to be implications within the subdivision code with affordable housing. And
So really, it's quite the reverse then. We need to get this out of the way in order to wrap up the final, for the consultant to wrap up the final recommendations of the affordable housing study.
Yes.
yeah, we'll make the puzzle parts fit for you.
All
How's
right.
that? But I appreciate that. So just remember to do your survey, please, because that's if you could do that by Friday, so we can set a date. The goal will be on at the May 11th meeting. We'll have a date set, so everybody can start penciling it into your respective calendars.
And it is such, Mr. Roloff, and just to remind people, it's such a complex project. We're looking at a 90-minute workshop.
Very good point. Speaking of May 11th, the special assessment hearing is scheduled for that evening. This will still be a virtual meeting, but Mr. Robbie and his staff are reaching out to the residents who are being impacted by special assessment so they can get the technical questions that they typically takes the lion's share of the questions, so we can just get those out of the way so that you're just dealing with the policy issue of the special assessment and hopefully, and I think we've had some good success in recent past of getting those issues out of the way so council can just focus on the policy issue.
Do council have any input on this? Feedback? All right.
Okay. The last one here, I will absolutely be seeking some council input. May 20th at 6 p.m. is the tentative date for the quarterly meeting with the council and the school board. Getting some input from the council on specific topics. Mayor, you mentioned one to me yesterday, so I told you I'd remind you. So, but
yes,
go ahead.
Yes, there a handful of folks in the community that have an interest in a potential joint resolution with the school board, school district, the anti-Asian hate resolution, and some of you may have followed, you know, the news in Appleton as to what some of the issues that arose there, but this is one that came specifically from citizen requests about whether council would approach the school district on a joint resolution. I do believe that there may be some discussion at a future DEI meeting also in between the two. There are a few folks who are interested in having that discussion. So if we could maybe add that to inquire of the school board if they have an interest in a joint resolution.
And then also an update on Merrill School was another topic. I don't have my notes from the last meeting. I apologize. If anybody else has any other topics, I'll go back to make sure that I have those.
There was
May
an
11th
update.
Meeting.
Wasn't there supposed to be like an update on the school busing?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
That was it. So we've got 3 items. Generally, we go about an hour, depending on different things, but normally about an hour. So we can probably fit another topic or so into that hour. So I will list these items as topics for next meeting, so you see them in advance. And if it stirs any other ideas that you want to talk about, we'll be ready to add those. So thanks. That's what I needed.
Looks like
Madam
you're
Mayor?
looking for some direction on the inactive liquor licenses.
Yeah, and I appreciate the work that City Clerk Ubrig and Deputy City Clerk Jekyll had provided me and the council. We have a list of licenses that date back a couple years now, and we had let it go for a year because of COVID, but we have five renewals that were due back. 4 of them did request renewal, 1 didn't. The Brass Rail was, this is on page 390 of your agenda packet. The Brass Rail did not. The other 4 have. I've had some, over the course of my career, I've seen it go in different ways. And certainly Oshkosh has taken a much different turn than where it was when I arrived here 13 years ago. But I think that we've reached a point where we can provide more flexibility to potential businesses by taking these licenses and holding them here until they're ready to be used. And if somebody's ready to use them, they step forward. And if they pass all the checks in the system, we issue the license. I can tell you, excuse me just a second, because staff also gave me some other information. In addition to the licenses that are there that are listed, we have 2 regular licenses that are already available. One of those is probably going to be taken up pretty soon. 2 that were just turned in, so I expect they'll get added to the list. Cobblestone, and it says Nickel. I can't remember which one that Nichols. And we still have 2 that are exclusive to the Sawdust District per a state law. We identified that as an area. And then there's that one that costs $10,000 that people hope that's not the last one available because they don't want to have to drop 10 grand. But we've got a pool of licenses that are available. And my recommendation is that we go through the process to just non-renew these. And if something comes up, we've got a whole pool of licenses available. And then if another business comes up, rather than have businesses hoard them for just themselves, if we have a new business that comes forward that wants to use that liquor license, we can make it available to keep these businesses moving forward. I think we're going to enter an era where we're going to see people turning them in, and if they know that they can get them back, it really relaxes everybody and makes them available actually better for everybody. So that's my recommendation. I think City Clerk Buberg goes along with that. I think City Attorney Lawrenson does, and our economic development folks that recognize how important this is. So I'd like your blessing to begin the process of non-renewal, and you can consider them and say, we don't, we want to continue, we want to renew this one. You'll have every right to do that. It's a quasi-judicial process where you kind of sit as the judge in that case, but I think it's appropriate that we do that. And I know there'll be a few people that are concerned and angry, but I really think, based on my experience, it's better to get this pool created for the benefit of everybody. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm okay, but we'll start the process.
Create the pool.
So we will start the non-renewal process for those 5. And I think by the end of the process, we could have as many as 9 or 10 licenses available citywide, which would be really great. So thank you for that input. I appreciate that.
All right then. And I don't think too many people realize that we did gain those 2 additional licenses when Mr. Davidson and his team, when we created the premier district down there in the Sawdust District, that gave us 2 additional licenses in that process. So that's a little bit of a newer development in the last couple of years.
Yes. And with that said, as a future agenda, we'll probably be talking about the, Mr. Davis, are you still there? Future agenda regarding the sawdust. Since you mentioned the sawdust district, Madam Mayor, you just reminded me, we did get some proposals, some very intriguing proposals, and they may involve liquor licenses down the road. But Mr. Davis, you were hoping maybe we would do a joint or an RDA meeting that we would invite the rest of the council to come in. Isn't that the idea?
Yes, the RDA would have their regular meeting in May 19th. That's a Wednesday afternoon. It is taped, so you don't have to attend, but the plan would be to have 5 proposals, teams present their proposals. There'd be opportunity for questions and answers for all 5 proposals for that 43 East 7th request for proposals that we sent out. And I think it'll be an education for both the RDA and the council, because this transaction will probably end up with a 3-party development agreement with the developer, the RDA, and the city council. So wanted to make sure you guys were aware. This would be the first opportunity to hear the formal presentation, ask questions and answers, and the RDA and the council will be working hand in glove to come up with the best choice for the developer.
And just a quick question on that too, Alan. I don't know, would you guys have like some kind of little criteria scoring sheet, matrix set up for folks who want to really geek out on this?
Nobody in particular, huh, Madam Mayor?
Ms. Nyforth has already started that, and Mr. Roloff has given us some ideas as to what we need to make sure we have on the first page and the second page and the third page, kind of a priority list.
Yeah, real quick review, real quick matrix. You can look at things and just see how they kind of compare against one another.
So is it the intent that this would be done once we're in person or virtual for the combination? I guess the reason I'm asking is I know that each of the sub-districts of the sawdust district has those matrices in there that had, what's permitted depending on the zone. And those would be like really helpful as visuals if we're not doing it in person, where it can be up on the wall in the room, that just might be something maybe they can anchor somehow in the screen.
I will follow up with IT and figure out that. Mr. Lyons, I'm sure, has all kinds of graphics to share regarding the Sawdust District and the Imagine Oshkosh plan that we could show the RDA and the council, just to refresh everybody's memory, or actually introduce the subject to several new council members. So
right.
I'll make sure we review that piece as part of this RDA meeting in May, and that already has been noticed as a virtual meeting. We had to do a 30-day notice on that.
That's
so
right.
It's already been noticed last week before, off the top of my head.
But I would say some intriguing proposals. So we thought it'd be good for the council to at least have an opportunity to at least look in on it. So we'll be noticing it as a joint meeting, just so that council will be comfortable attending if they choose to. So thank you. Thanks for the reminder.
And if I could, while we're on that topic, there were 2 people who had asked about accessing the but-for or the Joint Review Board meeting information. It's my understanding that that's not necessarily available out there. It goes only as far as January of this year. So for someone who's looking at inquiring or reading those minutes, what would you suggest for them, Mr. Davis?
If they would contact my office, we do certainly have the minutes of all the Joint Review Board meetings, and we'd be happy to share those with people.
All right, thank you.
That's all I have on liquor licenses, Madam Mayor.
Wow, we did jump through a couple of items there, didn't we? Whoops. All right, so reduction of council member representatives on Long Range Finance Committee from 2 members to 1 member. I put this on here for us to continue a conversation that was started previously about the fact that Long Range Finance had a history of when the ordinance was created and the commission or the board was created, that there was a difficult decision of which council member was going to staff it. And so it was thought that 2 could serve that board. And so this is just an opportunity for council to give some direction on whether or not you'd like to see that continue moving forward, or if we would reduce that to 1. Councilmember Wojciechowski.
I mean, I think it just makes sense to keep things fair and consistent with the other committees that it's just 1 member. I don't really see no reason for 2.
Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, so at our last in-person meeting, I took a pen home by accident, and I think this is, this is payback, getting kicked off this thing. No, I agree. Sorry, there's 2 of us, Councilmember Mugrauer and I are both served on there. It's in good hands with 1. I spoke with the mayor and she discussed the history, which I had no idea of. So yeah, what you just said, Councilmember Wojciechowski, makes a lot of sense. I got no issues with this.
Councilmember Mugrauer.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I guess I should chime in too a little bit, but I've been on there, I think, coming up on 4 years or maybe a little bit more. It's a great board. It's also one of our, it is a larger one. It's got 9 members instead of the normal 7. And as the mayor alluded to, 2 of its founding members, longstanding council members. That was, I think that was the art of compromise, was instead of choosing 1, both get what they want, right? But it's just fine going back to 1. And we, as the mayor and I have actually spoke, we've got a lot of boards and commissions that 7 council members have to split their time on too. And to take 1 off the plate will help the numbers just a little bit. And yet it still won't negatively impact the board. So fully supportive of the move as well.
All right, City
Madam
Manager, do you need anything else from us?
No, staff will work on preparing the ordinance. It's a relatively easy ordinance because it's just, we can subtract by 1. It'll be pretty easy. So we'll take care of that for you.
All right. So next we have your analysis on the possible use of the American Rescue Plan funds. And I think everybody should have gotten the packet that was prepared. That was pretty juicy reading.
I'm sure it solved all of your insomnia attacks that you had. My intent is to put it on for a robust discussion on May 11th because I highlighted several things, but I think we're going to need some significant input from the public. I think we need to refer this to basically every board and commission. I mean, I know, including long range finance, but obviously long range finance is like, when are we going to talk about it? And it's like, well, so I'm providing them this as well. And certainly that is if anything's long range, this is certainly one of them. But the idea was we want to get the discussion started on where we want to prioritize. And I know some communities have said, oh, we've got a plan to spend the money. And I think there's a lot of unknown factors still. I mean, the best one I can use as an example is the room tax fund. I think it's going to take through 2024 for us to recover from the impact that we've had with conventions, and that things are going to have to hit the reset button. So rather than committing all the funds anyway, I think it'd be appropriate to get some feedback from council on a process. But I think having a robust public input session, referring it to letting every committee give some feedback to council, then do some solicitations. Mr. Davis and I have talked about it because we've had a pretty successful process with our public service grants under the Community Development Block Grant. So something akin to that. But then the analysis that I provided you is really, as I've watched it, looked at it a little more, I think the other part of the process is we have some specific goals that council gave me for the year. You have strategic plan goals. You have goals of, every single department, our comprehensive plan, as well as some short-term goals. And put all those in there and give council the ability to evaluate those. I can tell you it's going to be tough because I think I jokingly said, we could spend it all on the Clearwell project and be done. And we know that's not appropriate. I think there's some rare opportunities for us. And I said rare responsibility. So I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you have about what was going through my head. Mr. Van Gompel, Mr. Fitzpatrick, and I spent a great deal of time looking at this, circulated amongst department heads, and got some additional feedback. But I think mostly everybody's like, well, when can we submit a project? But I really think that we want to get our hands around what goals do we want to achieve before we start allocating specific dollar amounts. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And if there's anything in particular you'd like to see or discuss on May 11th, either now or, it's a little late, but if you want to fill me in later on things you'd like to see, I want you to be able to have a robust discussion.
City Manager, just a clarification though. So that packet that we received, there were some examples given, but that is not all encompassing or limiting. Those were examples, right? The other thing is by
Yes.
May 11th, will we have the Treasury rules on how this can be used?
A solid maybe. We may have the first half of the funds. I'm told that Treasury is working on them, and their goal is to distribute them almost simultaneous with the distribution of the funds. So I would say the answer is likely yes. I still think there's going to be interpretations, but I think because of some of the things that we put in there, I know Deputy Mayor Mugrauer has asked me questions on numerous occasions about once we refund money that's been lost, which is allowed under the act, once that's returned to general fund balance, for example, if our fund balance exceeds our maximum, by your rule, you want to do something with that. And so I think we could find ourselves in that type of situation where we have more discretion than even ARPA allows. That's my interpretation. And I think it gives us some rare opportunities. I think that's why getting an idea of where we generally want, what goals we want to achieve, then we can start talking about, because then we're going to have to be evaluating a lot of projects, a lot of requests, and we're going to have some people who right now love us who will be disappointed because council's going to have to make a call on something. So I do not envy you with this, but I think this process is getting a handle on what goals we want to achieve is probably a big part of it. So yes, but answer to your question, those are examples. And anytime somebody saw this, they said, well, what about this project? Does it fit into one of these categories? Yes. Well, then you're cool. But yes, it is hardly an exhaustive list.
And I would imagine since the new census numbers just came out this week, we might even have some newer information regarding our population that could also be considered for those of us who are interested in looking at census data.
I think if you want to make a case for a request, the current census data will be valuable. So that's kind of it. If you think there are other goals that are perhaps missing, it's really intended for you to think through those things. Obviously my short-term goals are 2021 goals. I think when council adopted them, and I know I'm speaking for some of you who were on the council when the goals were given, there were some long-term elements to that. It wasn't just, oh, fix it this year, Mark, and we're good. These are, homelessness being one. That is a long-term issue. I think COVID kind of accelerated that as an issue for our attention. And there are other ones as well. City buildings, they're not going away. But again, you're going to have some tough decisions to make because, we know that with a few projects, this money could be gone like that.
All right.
That's all I have, Madam Mayor, on that one.
Thank you, Mark. And thanks for putting together, that framework for us to just start to chew on it and digest it. All right, so
You're
next,
more than welcome.
council member announcements and statements. Report on council liaison for boards and commissions. Several of you will not have that tonight, but for those who do, council member Mugrauer.
There we go. Thank you. Actually, I just have a quick one. For those out in the community, arts and beautifications. We've got a few of the Lake Fly project. Remember a few years ago, it was a community art project. There's a few of those left in storage, and storage is at a premium for the city of Oshkosh. So in short order, we would like those out of a storage building and hopefully maybe getting decorated. And there's a couple empty pedestals along the Riverwalk that would be happy homes for those. So if anybody's interested, Alexa in the planning area is kind of the one who's been, I think, commissioned to try to get rid of those as quick as possible, and not necessarily get rid of, but put those in hands of local artists, whether it's schools or anybody. We'll help you with giving you the guidance and the information on how to properly decorate them so they last as long as possible. But it'd be nice to move those blank lake flies out of storage and get them painted and put them somewhere. So that's what I have to report.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So those are not going out on the Buy Oshkosh auction. That's still through the actual application process. Is that right?
Right now, basically, from what I'm understanding, we've got a couple, and if somebody says they want one to decorate, we can basically, we could give them away at this point. I know there was some cost to acquire, but at some point, if they're not decorated, I can assume that they're going to be a sizable landfill donation, which I wouldn't want to have happen, but if storage is needed, storage is needed. So I'd rather put them in artists' hands to decorate.
Or they could be one of Councilmember Miller's like boat anchors. All right, well, good to know. Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you. I just have a quick update from the Rental Housing Advisory Board meeting from last week. We got an update from Lou Shear with AdvoCap on the Wisconsin Emergency Rental Assistance Program. That's a separate program from the previous RAP funding, Wisconsin Rental Assistance Program. So if folks are interested or are in need of funding, they can pay for current or prepay rent, along with past and current utilities and late fees. And an online application is available on AdvoCap's website. It's right on the main page. Otherwise, folks can call the AdvoCap main office to start that application. And she did share that as of last week, about over $603,000 have been spent in Winnebago County through that program. About 79% of the recipients of those funds were at 30% or less of the county median income. So they're looking to continue spending out. It's a large chunk of money that they have. So if folks are in need of rental assistance, please reach out to AdvoCap. That's it.
All right, great. And I just have one to report on. We had a fairly lengthy meeting last night, diversity, equity, inclusion. Dr. Pascal Manning, along with two esteemed guests, Arnold Chevalier and Dave Grignon, presented a Chief Oshkosh statue improvements plaque and concept rendering along with some verbiage. And there was a really thoughtful and deliberate discussion. And so that was very much welcomed. And then the vote to remain virtual for a couple more meetings. There was a kind of a mix as to who wanted to come back in person. And as you know, council decided to allow each board and commission. So they would like to remain virtual for a couple more meetings and then also start taking public comment as well. So that's what I have for DEI. All right. City manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple memos in your packet. One has to do with AECom Technical Services providing survey support for our 2021 construction season. We do that on an annual basis to have that support on the survey side of things. The cooperative purchase of the speed boards for Jackson Street. Excited to hear about that, implementing the recommendations of the Jackson Street corridor study. So we proceed with that purchase. And then the last memo there, professional services agreement with Cooney Architects. We looked at proposals from various firms, and Cooney is going to be doing the architectural and engineering for the transit center improvements, just the addition to the building that's adjacent to the shelters there. So getting started on that. That's just one part of the larger project that will be relooking at the transit center there. Happy to answer any questions you might have about any of those memos. Otherwise, the mayor and I, through our discussions with the chairs of boards and commissions, had a discussion a few months back about a flow chart to kind of go through how boards and commissions can eventually get something to council with a recommendation if they have an initiative they would like to pursue. And then through that process, I think we also identified some ways that I think staff could better serve the boards and commissions. And so I have a memo as well as the flow chart that is in draft form that's on page 425. This really just starts with board or commission member bringing up an issue and the staff liaison then acting on that, doing any appropriate research that may be necessary. I think the example of No Mo May is a great example because through that process we were able to identify what the group wanted to achieve, and originally it was misinterpreted that, oh my gosh, we could have some unintended consequences, and that certainly wasn't the intent of the SAB that brought it up. And as a result of that, we made some suggested changes. The committee agreed and appreciated those, and it went through the rest of the process to get it on the agenda. There's a lot of steps in the bottom half of that that's mostly just staff getting it on the agenda, but in the middle, the board and commission meets and takes actions on an item. And the idea is that they just don't sit there. They move forward, and so the staff liaison is going to be tasked with making sure that that staff liaison gets it to his or her manager, it gets on the agenda, or gets to me, depending on what the nature of the recommendation is. And then council meets and acts on those things. So within that, each board or commission is going to be a little bit different. So we didn't want to get into a ton of detail because we could have made a very elaborate flow chart trying to consider everything that each board and commission does. Staff will work on that and then talk to it about their respective board and commission so that they're aware of how this basic concept will work in real life for an individual board or commission. But it's really there to just kind of get some discussion, get some feedback. So if you have any questions or thoughts, please feel free to contact me or Mr. Fitzpatrick. Mr. Fitzpatrick's taken the lead on this for me, and he's been working very closely with Mr. Davis because he has the bulk of the boards and commissions. and then City Attorney Lawrenson, because we wanted to make sure that we were still following proper procedures from a legal standpoint. So feel really good about this. I think it identified that we have some work to do as staff to support our boards and commissions, because they're volunteers and sometimes they want to study something, and if they don't have the time or the resources to do it, it can flounder. And I think we owe it to the boards and commissions to do a little more of that. And I don't think we had done as much. So No Mo May was a good example of letting this type of process work, and we kind of were working on No Mo May in tandem with looking at this as kind of a test case. And I think it was a good outcome. So hopefully we can continue to do that. With that, it's getting late. I'll just give me some feedback. We'll keep working on this.
Just real quick on that, Mark, though, I would just add in the beginning, it starts out at the level of a board or commission member requesting an agenda item. You know, I don't know if you're thinking it would be a sub or if it would be above that, and that would be, you know, a citizen making a request for an agenda item to a particular board or commission. You know, if we're looking at what those boards and commissions serve. So
the short answer is yes, because I neglected. Mr. Davis gave me a recent update. So you must have been reading his mind. Staff received, he made it a 3-pronged at the top. One is the B and C member requested. One is staff. Says, hey, board or commission, what do you think? And then lastly, staff receives a request from a citizen or petitioner. So yeah, it's got to get initiated on many levels. So thank you for pointing that out. With that, just a reminder, council photo based on survey. Survey says May 4th at 5 to 6. Diane may have already sent that to you for your assigned time, and you'll let Photoshop do the rest, and you'll look like you've been there the whole time. Outstanding issues is there.
It looks like we have a new item on outstanding issues. Or maybe it's been there so long. Well, there's no number.
I don't have numbers on them. Sorry.
From October 22, 2019 on the assistance from state of Wisconsin to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It looks like Representative Hintz reported was that today?
No,
today was going to be a status.
Been there a while.
So the status update was today. That's by our staff.
I think it was because we'll review and report on the status of the grants at the end of the first quarter. So the idea is that, you know, we're going to take a look at where some of these grants may be going. You know, that may end up being in the president's package, and Mr. Davis is waving, so I better be quiet. Go ahead, Alan.
Just wanted to let you know that SAB staff liaison and Mr. Lyons and myself, we review the status of all the grants, federal, state, and local for greenhouse gases on a quarterly basis. So if nothing is new, we don't have anything new to report. So but staff does go through that exercise every quarter of every year.
And with the American Jobs Act, I believe is the term that President Biden is proposing, and I think it's going to broaden the definition of infrastructure. This could very well qualify under that. So that'll probably be the next quarterly review with staff, depending on how that goes. That might not be till September either. So we shall see on that. And then I'll be providing, Councilmember Mugrauer and I talked about a quarterly update, a more robust quarterly update for council relative to my goals. And I will be providing that to council within the next week.
And just a reminder too, Deputy Mayor, if you want to put that out there, start reviewing your handbooks because we do come up, I'm sorry, are we not then going to do the mid-year review if you're going quarterly?
Will the update, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
Sure.
Coming out of our last review process from City Manager Roloff, it was council's desire to have a little bit more in the updates and a little bit more often. And I think we walked out of that meeting kind of expecting maybe quarterly updates, just something more than just on this spreadsheet. And so it was just a reminder to the city manager that that was one expectation. He knows about it, knew about it, and is going to be doing it shortly. And then, but no, we will still meet at roughly the half-year mark, and no pun intended there with Mark, but meet at the half-year way, and then have a brief discussion with amongst ourselves and then with the city manager to keep furthering our dialogue.
All right, so are you thinking then June? I know my June is filling up really quickly. I don't know about other folks. So what date time frame?
We'll be working on some date. We'll be working on some dates shortly
right.
to get out and have those discussions on when it works best for most or all.
Cool.
Yeah, I think Mayor, the song is June is busting out all over, and I think you're right. Summer's coming, and if people can get out, people are going to try to get out.
A lot of people are making up for last year.
Yes. And with that, we'll segue to COVID-19. I really don't have any update. I think you talked a lot about COVID-19 today. You don't need to hear any more from me. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
All right. Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Move forward. Please take the roll.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Palmieri.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.